Buenos tardes from beautiful Barrio Huanuca in Matagalpa, Nicaragua. We are gathered here today to help me celebrate my first year anniversary as an expat in Nicaragua. So, buenas to all of you. I got two people on in the first 20 seconds. I'm digging this. Hola, Roberta. Yes, Roberta. I see Tony. Good luck with my first live stream. Have to do a few things. If you do a Scott length, I'll be back. I don't believe I'll be doing a Scott length, which are historically long. This my first one. Really depends on how many people jump on board, have questions. I do have some good information as the filler, but I did put a couple notes on board here. One of my goals for my early retirement was to write a book. And since I was a teenager, I was going to be a writer, like many people. And I had my title picked out since I was 17 years old. And the title was the title of this channel, Journeys of a Malcontent. How little I did not know that at almost 35 years ago, I was going to be doing a lot more traveling than I had at the age of 17. So it was a fitting title for a book, but in the modern world, people just don't read so much. I worked with a friend that's also an author. We were talking about doing ghostwriting with me. I was going to send him chapters. Even looked at a graphic novel. Talked to an artist about doing some crazy stuff. And the simple answer was one, I wanted to stay connected with family, same kind of thing that Scott did with his father. And I said, you know what? I can at least chronicle my travel here, give people a better insight of what it's like to actually live here, dispel some of the confusion, dispel some of the propaganda about being here because I had visited twice before. And it's also it's good for this thing up here to help kind of chronicleize what's going on. So before I run down any rabbit holes, I am at 130 subscribers as of a few minutes ago. I want to thank all of you. While we're talking about that, the three of you that are on board right now, please hit a like, do a share, tell friends, tell family, tell frenemies. It doesn't matter. All that helps feed the YouTube algorithm gods and make sure that my stuff doesn't get buried between those commercials on YouTube that says how to learn AI beyond Chat GPT in 4 weeks so you can be the most dangerous person in the room. I don't need to be dangerous to anybody other than the ones that might try to do me harm, and that's not what they're teaching you about. Yeah, Roberta, yes, YouTube is helpful. It can be. It can be a great thing. Janet's on board. Greetings, Janet. She is here and clicked right away. Outstanding. Yeah, I'm curious being on this side of the glass, so I got my 2 thumbs up already. When I'm watching on other people's, I'll hit the like, and it'll be the only one I see. And then it's got like, oh no, I got 35 thumbs up, and I see 2. But either way, so thank you. Again, small audience to start with. But you guys always notice I'm wearing goofy shirts. So any means necessary. This is a company out of Ohio. Sean Cross is an artist who decided to take it upon himself to do visual representations of mental health issues and concerns. And part of the proceeds of his profits goes to assisting a nonprofit in providing mental health assistance to people in Ohio who can't afford it on their own. So the front of this is hell is empty, and the back says because the devils are all here. Many of you may know my tag name, which again has been around for over 35 years, is Lucifer. When you log on to this channel, I get people to freak out and they go, why are you naming yourself Lucifer? So quick backstory to that. Lucifer, Lucifer, is the false bearer of light, the morning star. And the name Luke, which actually comes from the Greek, is for the Italian city of Lucia, which is the city of light. The people that lived there were the Lucians, were the people of light. And when you switch up the Latin, Lucifer is the true bearer of light versus Lucifer being the false bearer of light. And that would be in reference to enlightenment. The other kicker, I have a family crest that is from light comes, or from darkness comes light, and in Lux Tenebris, which is kind of funny that the two all come together, because nobody knew these things about Latin roots when they were picking out my name as a child. My mom was a Paul Newman fan and loved the movie Cool Hand Luke. So I'm just shaking that tree, boss. I'm just shaking that tree. Hat off, boss. Thank you, boss. But so I want to give some shout outs. And as I'm doing that, there's the first question. Oh, there's Chris. Congrats on the first year. Thank you very much. And you posted a link in the general expat. Yeah, I didn't get around to that yet. First run, dry run. Thank you, Janet. First question people have is, why Nicaragua? So I did a lot of travel in the military in my 20s, which took me all over the Pacific. I'm from Florida, wanted to be stationed in Florida. There was a job I wanted at MacDill Air Force Base for the Army. I'm an Army guy, and didn't get it. And in their infinite wisdom, there's a geography major somewhere in the Army going, Florida, Tacoma. And I went as far as you could be in the lower 48 and still keep me in country. So Fort Lewis, Washington was my primary duty station. With that, I later transferred to Hawaii in Schofield Barracks on Oahu. But I did temporary duties in Korea, in Thailand. I did time in Burma. It's the best way to describe it. I would do layovers in the Philippines, do layovers in Guam, went down to California at Nixon's funeral. I'm pulling a cannon on Nixon's funeral. A little bit of all that. But the only time I was not in the Pacific in the military is they sent me to Guantanamo Bay in '95 for humanitarian service mission. So the closest I ever got to home was on a remote little sliver of occupied Cuba that we call Guantanamo Naval Base. And we were there assisting Cubanos, and also not originally part of the mission, Haitians that were fleeing due to various things. So in the mid 90s, Cuba had lost a lot of the financial support of Russia as the Soviet Union had collapsed. And with that, they were having rolling blackouts. They were having food shortages, much like they are now. But at that time, it was the second Mariel lift. In the first one in the 70s, Castro had said, listen to the rich former Cubans who had gone to the United States, primarily Miami. If you want your family members, you're going to take all these other people with you as well. And that's where the accusations of somebody cleaning out their jails and their asylums and things like that occurred. The second Mariel happens in early 90s, but I'm there in 95. In that one, it was a little more subdued, and Castro pretty much said, listen, if you want to leave, you can leave. You just got to find your own way out of here. So people were building rafts and trying to float across the Florida Straits. Coast Guard got really busy saving people, picking them up out of the water, and couldn't bring them directly to Florida. So we end up using Guantanamo Base as the largest immigration naturalization service. It was still called INS back then, the largest INS station that the U.S. has ever had. And we helped patriate people and do backgrounds to ensure that they were people that didn't have a bar from coming into the country. So my, again, closest assignment to Florida was actually in Guantanamo Bay, and we got to help Cubanos. That was 1995. When you fast forward 30 years later, when I was a Florida State Service officer for Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, I would help people do their disability compensation claims for VA healthcare and benefits. And I would meet these retirees and come to find out, hey, by the way, I see that you did da-da-da-da-da, and it says you were born in Cienfuegos, Cuba, or in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, da-da-da-da. And they go, yeah. And I look at their age, and I'd say, did you go through Guantanamo Bay. And they're like, yeah, see, I'm like, okay. And what happened? They go, well, once I turned 18 in the camps, and once I got to Miami, I immediately signed up for the Navy. And I've met about 20 military retirees that had the similar story, and they all have the same answer. You look over and say, you know, you were leaving a country that was in disarray and terrible things, and you left with literally nothing but the clothes on your back. And you get to this new country and you couldn't speak English. What made you join the military? And every one of them had the same answer. The country that's willing to assist my family is the country I'm willing to serve. So that was a prime example 30 years ago of the true American dream coming to fruition for people who were from another country, coming to the US knowing nothing of its culture, and dedicating their prime years of adulthood into helping other people. Yes, I agree, Roberta, very humbling. So I've met some really great Cubans in my time. And this was before I ever got in the cigar business. So I served in the military 92 to 99. And when I got out of the service, the only job I could find, because I had been personnel in the Army, was human resources for local government. So I did that. I burned myself out on it. And I took a leap of faith with a friend and a friend of a friend who I was in a band with on Fort Myers Beach. And we opened up the Cigar Hut of Fort Myers Beach on December 1st of 2000. And I was just doing it as weekends. We were only open Friday through Sunday initially. So I'm working my 50 hours a week for the county on salary, not getting paid the overtime. I'd race down to Fort Myers Beach. I'd swap out of clothes. I'd go work all of Friday night until like about 10, 11. We'd go to the bar. I'd work a double shift on Saturday. I'd work a double shift on Sunday. I'd race back to Punta Gorda, take a nap, get into my business clothes, and work in Fort Myers Monday through Friday and do it again. So we did that. Our New Year's Eve party going into 2001 blew us away with our sales. We had a 10 by 10 foot tent on the beach, and our sales were so phenomenal. I looked over and I went back to work the next day, and I gave a month's notice. So I gave up, you know, benefits and health care for a shot at something. And the Cigar Hut is still in existence today. So Stephen Light, you said you might be popping in on these. If Terry's around still, outstanding. I will be in town in a few weeks here for a few weeks and then coming back. So they've now have been in existence for over 25 years. I believe it's the fourth location. But the cigar business. So I had enjoyed cigars in the military, didn't know much about them. The only way you learn it is you listen to the people already selling them, and you smoke them, and you smoke a lot of them, and you develop a palate and a taste for it. So yeah, 2000 Y2K, correct. Long live rock and roll. I smoked everything under the sun. I was smoking an insane amount of cigars to develop a palate, learn the characteristics of the different tobaccos, was very good at my job. But ultimately, I left the Cigar Hut, did some other jobs, and fell in with an old friend of ours who had a cigar bar in downtown Fort Myers and a few other bars attached to it. And with Richie Castellano, I made trips to Honduras, to the Dominican, and at the end of my tenure with him and opening up several cigar bars and running those humidors and training other personnel and doing wholesale and doing cigar menus and doing presentations and doing television ads. People kind of get surprised. Like, what are you doing television ads? It's like I would be on a regular network morning show and a pressed Goyabera, linen pants, leather shoes with the fedora. And I got like a $60 cigar in this hand, and I got like a $40 bourbon in the other hand. You can't actually smoke on television. You can't actually drink on television. And because it's indoors, you can't light the cigar. I did everything else but. I'd sit there and roll the cigars in my hand. I'd twist it in my mouth. I'd tell them about why we picked this cigar to match with this drink, the characteristics of the bourbon, who the founder is, who's the master distiller, how old the barrels were, El Paso is just now getting a cigar restaurant 25 years later. Wow. Yeah, and cigars are big in Texas. What's even bigger is humidor sales because it's so hard to maintain the humidity in Texas for cigars. You want them in a 65 to 75 degree range, a 65 to 75% humidity range for pristine. But yeah, I got to do a bunch of crazy stuff with the cigar industry. Met a lot of famous people. I already met a bunch of famous people when I was in the military, because while I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, there was a gentleman there by the name of Jason Everman, and all we knew was Jason was from around the area, and he had gone into the 275th Ranger Battalion. Later went on to First Special Forces Group, and then left because he was going into Delta. What we did not know at the time was Jason Everman had formerly been in the bands Nirvana, been in Soundgarden. So we would go out, and he knew every bouncer, he knew every bartender, he knew every band, he knew every venue, and he just didn't talk about his past. But I got to meet a little bit of everybody during the grunge scene in that time. So the back to the trips. So I will get to the story eventually, but there's stories within stories within stories, which is going to be part of the focus later on. I'm going to go back and recap some of those stories. Granola. Oh no, hell no, granola. So after a beautiful trip to the Dominican Republic, General Cigars, and a great trip to Honduras with Rocky Battelle Cigars, who's down in Naples, Florida headquarters, I finally got to go to Nicaragua solo. I wasn't with Richie or anybody else, and it was with Perdomo Cigars. So a big shout out to the owner, Nick, and his brother, because those guys brought me on board, and I had an absolute blast. I got to go down here for a week to Istile in 2010. And that was my very first trip to Nicaragua. So I knew nothing of the country other than, in my opinion, they had the best tobacco. So I got to tour the fields, the factory, meet the rollers, meet the production people, talk to an 85-year-old agronomist. And the guy had been smoking cigars since he was 8 years old. He was like a George Burns type in a lot of ways. He may have been an older man, but he was still chasing the younger women. But I got to meet a little bit of everybody. And again, first time here. Now, Honduras was kind of rough around the edges, and it was a few years prior. The Dominican had a higher cost of living. And, you're on half of an island. So we didn't get to tour around much. And with Perdomo Cigars, we got to go pretty much to the fields in this area. We did go up to Condega, but we pretty much stayed in Esteli. And I fell in love with this. Billy Perdomo was a great host. And I'm going to share with you guys now the story. I've alluded to it a few times. What really put the hook in me about coming to Nicaragua? That first trip, they have a private chicken bus. So it's an old U.S. school bus that's been repurposed. And they're held together with spit, tape, and love, and spare parts when they can find them. Nicaragua in 2010, the cell phone service was spotty. The power went out often. In fact, where I was staying, they turned the generator off at night. So there was no electricity at night. And there was still a lot of trash alongside the highways. And I saw a lot of people not really smiling. The country was beautiful. The country produced beautiful things, but the people weren't very happy. They still had high unemployment. Again, this is going back almost 16 years. And I loved most of what I saw. I went eyes open. It was my first country. I've actually traveled to 20 countries in my life. And Nicaragua is my favorite, hence one of the primary reasons that I moved here. So we have a chicken bus that takes us from the airport. They have a cooler full of Tonya beer. We get to go all the fields, factories, all this good stuff. We're staying in a small, what I would refer to as motel. It was a hotel, but colonial style building, which isn't common in the Esteli area. And when we were leaving to go back to the airport for an international flight, the bus broke down. And, we're on a tight time frame to make connections. And luckily for me, I'm just flying in to Miami. Other people had to do connecting flights beyond that. So if you miss the first plane, you're missing all the planes. So the radiator hose had blown, and we looked around, and I see the bus driver chomping on some chewing gum. I looked at the hose, and one end of it's all ratty, and there's a hole popped in it, and we're losing fluid. It's steaming out. And I looked around, and don't know how I had this MacGyver moment, but I had an instant moment of clarity of what needed to happen. So one of the things I had brought through that I was very surprised that customs didn't take is I had what's called a Swiss key. When they're folded, they look like a regular door key. When you unfold it, there's a little bitty tiny pen knife. There's a little tiny screwdriver on it. Now, they were taking our cigar cutters. They were taking our torch lighters. They were taking all those kinds of things at the airport, so we knew not to bring those. I packed my cutter actually in my check bag. And I knew better than even try to bring a butane lighter. I would just have to deal with Bic lighters here and matches and all that. But I got my Swiss key on my keychain, and customs never said anything about it. So I looked over. I looked at the bus driver, and I said, "Do you have any more of that chewing gum?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I looked over, and I handed chewing gum out to people. I said, "Start chewing." I take my Swiss key out. I go through my bag. I take a competitor's T-shirt out, and I start cutting it into strips. And people are looking like, "What the hell is he doing?" And I cut the T-shirt into small strips. We take the hose off. I use the knife to trim around it so it can get a good flat seal against the metal base of the radiator. I take chewing gum from a handful of people, and I start plugging the hole that's in the radiator hose. Billy actually had a torch lighter. I take the torch lighter and I start heating the chewing gum up so it gets hardened and it seals the hole. And now I take the T-shirt, and thanks to military training, I make a pressure dressing. So I take knotted shirt and I wrap it around the hose as tight as I can. And then I take regular pieces and I wrapped it around that. And I reinsert the radiator or the radiator hose onto the radiator. And people said, "Well, what are you going to do to fill it?" And I looked over at the cooler and I said, "How much beer is left?" So we had about 8 bottles of Tonya beer left. We fill it, and it's still not enough. And they, "Well, now what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, now we're going to top it off with used beer." And each of us took a turn standing on the hood of the bus, peeing into the radiator to top off the radiator. So we had enough fluid to get us to the airport. And in the meantime, we're across the street from some private business, and there's guards out front just laughing their ass off at us. So needless to say, it got us to the airport on time. And everybody's looking over at me like, "How did you figure out to do that?" And I said, "Well, honestly, I've never had to do that before. It just made sense." So fast forward about a week later, I'm on the phone with Billy Perdomo, my host of the time. And I said, "Hey, Billy, by the way, how'd that all work out with the bus?" And I could hear him literally spitting a drink out of his mouth. He's on the intercom phone with his brother, the owner. And he goes, "Luke," he goes, "not only did your little Mr. Fix-It make everything happen," he goes, "but it gave our driver enough time to get to an actual mechanic shop, get a new hose, put proper coolant into it, get back to the airport with picking up beer en route to pick up the next round of cigar enthusiasts that were coming down for the next sponsored tour." He goes, "From here on in, you are Maestro Mechanical for Perdomo Cigars." He goes, "You can always come down here and work on our buses." That was such a unique, strange, off the wall departure from the country that I had a feeling I was going to be back. And again, that was 2010. So that was my first visit here. It was a beautiful country. I was knee deep in tobacco at the time. I loved the people that I met in person. It's just a flesh wound. 'Tis but a scratch. Yes, 'tis but a scratch with my little Swiss key penknife. And I had nothing but beautiful things to say. So for those of you who are tobacco enthusiasts, quite simply, the greatest crop of tobacco I've ever found historically and consistently comes from Nicaragua. It has the most fertile, volcanic, rich, dense black soil Everything that grows here well. Our vegetables are enormous. Everything grows really quickly. The fruit here grows quickly. Fruit trees grow like nobody's business here. Everything grows quickly and well. There are many areas that have zero pesticides and just natural fertilizer. There are pesticides used here, not to any level as in North America. We do have a few places that grow organic crops that actually pay the money to get the certification to say they're organic. And we have we have 5 people on, and I got 4 thumbs up. I'll take it. 25 minutes and change into me rambling. So I've absolutely loved the country, and I went to took over another cigar store for about 6 months for a profitability analysis. The analysis was I couldn't stay there anymore. And I jumped out of the cigar business, and I tried to do the white picket fence with someone. And I went through a bunch of different sales jobs, and I was not a happy person. And a bunch of different things were going on. I had some health issues at the time, which was my second cancer. And I was in a miserable relationship, and I'm in a miserable job, and my health's gone to crap, and I have no money, and nothing was going right. And I had an epiphany, and I turned most of that around in a very short amount of time through the help of a friend who has been gone for a while now by the name of Henry Selbert, who was my work buddy from Men's Warehouse, where you're going to like the way you look. He guarantees it. Yeah, he guaranteed it with our commissions. If you didn't like the way you look, we lost our commissions. But ultimately, I went in which year was that? In 2012, I was working for Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. And I'm sorry, before Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, I was working for Career Source, which was part of the Department of Economic Opportunity, which has jobs that assisted veterans either employment seeking or with employers looking to hire veterans. And while that mission sounds noble, the compensation was not. And the short answer is I wound up testifying against the Department of Economic Opportunity and Career Source Florida in a federal audit by the Department of Labor. And despite that testimony, none of the guilty parties ever got in trouble. But short answer, people were stealing statutorily restricted funds to pay for what was brand new at the time, Teslas, personal equipment, personal clothing at federal expense and at the expense of the veterans that we were honor bound and sworn to assist. I luckily jumped ship for Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, which has the truly noble job of assisting veterans getting their health care and their compensation. You become an advocate. You become a true advocate. I had been leery about taking the job because of the vast amount of knowledge you need to do that job well. You break a branch of a tree and you stick it to the ground, it'll grow. Correct. Yeah. A lot of startovers in life, but you know what? Everything I've ever done in my life has brought me to this moment now. And it doesn't take much of a gut check to realize I'm in the best situation I could be in spite of every trial and tribulation that's happened in the past. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't gone through the traumas and trials and tribulations of bad prior employers and relationships. But the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, I cut my teeth on that. I became a subject matter expert. And one of the beauties about having a personnel background from the military was I was already well-versed in military history. I used to compete with Soldier of the Month, Soldier of the Quarter, Soldier of the Year, of the unit, of the base, of I-Corps. I competed for Audie Murphy Board. I had a lot of knowledge in the jobs that I threw myself into. So in compensation for the VA, you learn a lot of legalese and you learn a lot of medical terminology. And because I'd had a lot of my own health issues in the military and post-military, I learned how to do my own claims, and I'm still fighting some of my own claims. But I truly found a good place where I could excel and be one of the highest rated individuals in the state of Florida, helping, which at the time was the third largest veteran population. And where I lived in Southwest Florida, we had one of the oldest veteran populations in the entire country. The statistical odds are, if you'd like to meet a World War II veteran, they probably live in either Sarasota or Charlotte County, Florida, on the Southwest Gulf side. And then the Tampa Pinellas area, because of the two large VA hospitals within proximity. But Venice, Florida used to be the oldest zip code in the United States, with the average age of people being 72. And now Punta Gorda is taking that lead, or at least had a year and a half ago. And yeah, if you want to meet a World War II veteran, the odds are they live in Southwest Florida, for the handful that still remain. But it was a very noble job. I got to assist a lot of people. I learned a lot about military history, because every time you sat down with a new veteran, you are interviewing living history. There were times when I'd have a World War II veteran coming in to talk about compensation, and I'd go out to the front staff and I said, I'm not seeing anybody until this man's done talking to me. I'm just he gets as much time as he wants. Korean War veterans, I met a lot of them. Again, because of where we were and where people retire in the arthritis belt. My bread and butter was Vietnam era veterans, and then because I served after the first Gulf War, I served right after that in '92, when we thought we were going to have an influx and a return, which luckily didn't happen. I worked with a lot of people that worked in the in-between time. And for many of us, the in-between time wasn't all peaceful. So there's a lot of people that did a lot of things that go under global war of terrorism. And then a lot of it goes to Cold War operations. So many of them didn't have automatic access to healthcare for eligibility purposes, because there wasn't a declared war at the time. So we had to know all the rules and regulations to get fellow veterans enrolled in healthcare, what qualified, what didn't qualify, how to appeal a decision that was unfavorable, what their routes were based on when they served, where they served, how they served, what their job was, awards received, and then modern healthcare and issues, and whether or not they could be attributable to service. And a lot of that has to do, like, with the Agent Orange, because now a lot of people don't realize Agent Orange was used in places other than just Vietnam. It was stored in a lot of places. It leaked in a lot of places. People had to use it in a lot of places. So I have a friend back in Florida, Mike Moore. If you're watching, hello. He was stationed in Guam. So luckily for him, without going into any personal information, he is not currently diagnosed with anything related to Agent Orange, but the VA conceded that even though he served in the 90s, he has been exposed in an area that stored Agent Orange. And potentially, knock on wood, it never happens, but if he ever develops one of the presumptive conditions of Agent Orange exposure, it will be automatically presumed because of when and where he was stationed in Guam. So again, even the guys that were serving in modern eras, I was able to assist. I was doing benefit claims for Tier 1 operators. So the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs would send me to remote sites to work with National Guard reserve units that are in special forces and the related fields. And because of my prior work in the military and my prior security clearance, I was being groomed to work in the White House basement with White House Communications Agency back in the day. And because I was highly revered in my current job with Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, they had given me additional clearance to go on to secured military bases, where SOCOM in Miami, which is actually Homestead, CENTCOM in MacDill, I had access to those bases, even though I'm not a military retiree, nor was I active duty. But I would be able to do disclosures, briefings in a skiff of how a veteran, or at the time even active duty, could make claims for things if the events were under some level of classification. And yeah, mental gymnastics if you have that to navigate. Yeah, it is. It was a humbling job. However, so much of it made sense because of my background, because I had worked with Homestead, Florida, not Homestead, Idaho. Uh, you find Miami on the map and you keep going south until it almost runs out of road. And that's where Hurricane Andrew had hit back in the early 90s when it tore Miami apart. And Homestead Base had to be rebuilt. It was repurposed. For a while, it was inactive. And they brought it originally was just going to be a reserve unit. And then it's a reserve base with active duty components on it. But it is a secured hard site. It's kind of crazy. I won't go into the details of what they do for security there. But you realize you're at the real deal. And even going indoors, you see signs everywhere at electrical outlets and USB outlets of whether or not you can charge your personal equipment, governmental equipment, or make a connection with your phone to certain places, because they've got barriers upon barriers to prevent information either going in or coming out. But yeah, I took a lot of pride in that work, and I got to see the true results of my work. I got to see veterans' lives turned around. There were plenty of tearjerkers when a guy who served in Vietnam in the first unpopular war and had been fighting with the VA for over 40 years and finally gets the vindication that somebody believes him. Again, pull on the heartstrings. And as a veteran who fought for many years for my own disability information, I did get my 100% permanent and total, but I still have outstanding claims. Some is retroactive pay, and some of it is for access to health care that is not directly service connected yet while I'm out of country. So if you've seen any of my prior videos, you know I do go back to Florida on a semi-regular basis. My intent was to go back once, twice a year, see family. And I'd met plenty of veterans who were expats, and they would basically come back to the States for a month, do all their annual exams, and say, see you next year. And I was like, okay, so that's possible. I can get it all done in a month's time, a month, a year. Okay, yeah, I can do that. And come to find out, one of my medications for my rheumatoid arthritis, which is a refrigerated auto injector that you stick in your gut every week, like diabetics do with insulin, is not available here. And the biosimilar to it would be $1,500 US per month for me to buy it here. So you cannot lawfully ship medication in any capacity. If you have a prescription that you got from your doctor and you live in Florida and you're going to go on vacation somewhere, you can't put it in the mail and mail it to you in Illinois. You, as a private citizen, cannot mail prescription medication in any capacity. Do people do it? Yes. Do people get caught? Yes. Do some people get away with it? Absolutely. But you are trafficking a controlled substance of some level. So I can't ship medication across country or from town to town within Florida. You sure as heck cannot ship. Oh yeah, my sister pops on. Mom used to. Yeah, well, mom could have gotten in trouble. So hello to my sister, Heather Garcia, 08P. First of the familia. I have a brother that said he's working in Tennessee. He's not going to be joining us this evening. But yeah, so I can't ship medication from Florida to Nicaragua. I can hand carry medication, so refrigerated medication. Originally, I was told I could only get a 90-day supply. Well, now all of a sudden, from going once or twice a year, now I'm looking, I have to fly back every 3 months. This is going to be a pain in the butt. Homestead Perrine, name from childhood. I was there in the 8th grade. Okay, from talking about the Idaho. But I was a little upset with that because it kind of threw a big monkey wrench in my plans here, as I was hell-bent to get my residency. For those of you who have watched Scott Allen Miller's videos, you know, majority of individuals should not go out seeking residency before you've been here for a while. Now, I'd made a fact-finding visit here in 2022 after getting hit not by one, but by two of the largest hurricanes to ever hit Southwest Florida. And when I got to Nicaragua in October of 22, I got hit by Hurricane Julian, which was only an H1. And I'm up here in the mountains of Matagalpa, staying in Selva Negra and visiting Esteli, visiting Jinotega, visiting Matagalpa, Sibaco, San Rafael del Norte. And the locals were very scared. And I'm like, oh, it's only an H1. They're looking at me like, it's a hurricano. It's a hurricane. It's a hurricane. I'm like, yeah, it's only an H1. I'm from Florida. I just went through a 4 and a 5, and they were direct hits over my house. And yeah, we've had no power for weeks, and no running water thing. And it's all good. It's only an H1 when it hit the coast. It was a tropical storm when it hit here. The roads were open the next day. But because they had been hit by Hurricane Mitch in the past, even in the middle of the country, up high in the mountains at a high elevation, they had lost their coffee crop and much of their agricultural crops here due to when that hurricane hit. So they have a right to be concerned. This region does not get hit with hurricanes very often. It's very infrequent, but they have had catastrophic loss to their economy because this is an agricultural region. And also, when you're in the mountains, when you get a ridiculous amount of wind and water, you have mudslides. So the physical damage was mudslides in the region, and the economic damage was losing agricultural crops. So there is a reason for locals to be concerned, especially when they don't see these happen very often. But yeah, I had gone through those hurricanes. I came here in 22. I needed to decompress and just focus because I was working insane hours for Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. For anybody that's familiar with complex or compound post-traumatic stress, overworking is a very common symptom. And I had shrugged off that forever as just having a good Midwestern work ethic. If you just keep on working harder, you'll climb the, no, that doesn't, no. I was using overworking to help everybody else at the expense of my own health. And I needed this time down here in Nicaragua to decompress and to relax and to refocus. And I saw, so I came here originally in 2010. It's now 2022. And I'm looking around in that short amount of time. Everybody's got a cell phone now. Not only does everybody have a cell phone, but all the cell service is really good. And oh, thanks on the beard. My sister just pointed out, I just got the beard tightened up professionally today by a young lady by the name of Gabriella. So if you are in need of somebody that is a professional hairstylist that does braiding, crochets, knit work, cornrows, the whole bit, she is a subject matter expert here. Her rates are very fair and a good person. So yet another Nika here that's been great. So another local shout out. So the 2022 trip, I look at the before and after. The roads are clean. Yep, it is awesome. Thank you. The roads are clean. People have cell phones. People have internet. There's smiles. I saw the poorest of children with a smile on their face. And as I'm whittling away my own health to work on below average salary because it's a noble job helping everybody else at my own expense, I had a pretty good understanding that I wasn't going to be able to continue doing that much longer. So it wasn't 6 weeks coming back from my vacation that I had yet another coworker quit, and we were going through coworker trainees like toilet paper. And then there was complaints made by him because the individual was kind of a woohoo. And I realized that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And one of the benefits as a state service officer being embedded in a VA healthcare facility, the one I actually used for myself, is when I needed to do appointments, I took minimalist amount of time off and I could go 1, 2, or 3 floors up and go see my practitioners. Well, Cape Coral VA in Southwest Florida, the Lee County VA Healthcare Center in Cape Coral. The fourth floor has mental health in it, and we just made reference to people being referred to the fourth floor. And I got to a point in time when I looked over and saw that I was going to be talking to over 30 individuals in a 14-hour day before I bagged up my laptop to go work at home until I fall asleep on the laptop to take a nap, get up and do it all again the next day while doing events, while doing seminars, and just one thing after another. I looked up with a dazed look in my eyes, and I got done with one customer, and I looked at my coworker and I said, I got to go upstairs. I don't know when I'm coming back down. I did a self-referral to VA mental health, and I said, I'm not a happy person and I can't keep doing what I'm doing. So I finally listened to other people when they said, no, dude, you're depressed. And I was like, no, I'm not depressed. I'm like, no, you are depressed. So that was at the end of 22. And I realized that I was going to have to try to take mental health medication. I opted for therapy. I opted to reluctantly try medication. I listened and I gave things a chance. And therapy did not do much. Come to find out with CPTSD, often doing cognitive behavior therapy doesn't help. It can actually make things worse because you're constantly having to repeat the bad memories and stressors from your life. And just talking about it doesn't make it better. I reluctantly tried medication, and medication made things worse. And I've made the joke with people for a while that I wasn't going to be a statistic, and I wasn't going to have people find out my middle name on the 5 o'clock news. So if you take a little before this beard, but if you take a look at the bald, white, fat, bearded white guy on the news with quote unquote, some college education, military background, jumped through a number of jobs, trust issues, a few personal relationships, and then insert them into whatever happened in the news feed, I'm automatically guilty. Guilty in the court of public opinion. So I did not want to go that route. I was a victim of road rage, and I was a participant in road rage. At that time, there was a very dangerous road in my town that I had to drive on, and but without the full details, but I did all the things a responsible citizen's supposed to do. I wrote my county commissioner, I wrote my mayor, I did all those things. Nothing was going to change the dangerous commercial driving habits because commercial drivers were handling fill dirt, and fill dirt is construction, and construction is taxes, and fill dirt is more valuable than your life. And I was stressed out to the point where I was a complete hermit. I was leaving the house for food, and I was leaving the house for medicine. And so I had given notice on my job. I got hosed on my overtime. I got like I did every job. I got hosed on my overtime. Didn't matter who I spoke to with the state. Didn't matter who I disclosed things to with the state. And when it came time to hire an employment attorney, I didn't get injured on the job. So therefore, there's no money in it for them. Claiming compensation unpaid doesn't pay the attorneys enough money to be bothered with returning a phone call. So I filed for my SSDI. And of course, it got denied not once, but twice before it finally got approved. And which was a lot of time at the house by myself, which wasn't all good, but was necessary. I tried doing a bunch of walking on a bridge early in the morning, and come to find out, even 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, when the town is relatively asleep, I would still run into people that caused problems, and wasn't doing well with the general public. And I said, you know what? I need to remove myself from all of this. And I thought back to my happy time the year prior, being surrounded by people who I really couldn't speak much with. My Spanish vocabulary was all of about 15 words before I moved here. So for those that have a question, should I move there if I can't speak Spanish? Yes. Ideally, you should start learning Spanish now. But You do, Scott's here. Woot, woot, he is here. Yeah, you do not have to speak Spanish to move here. I am a prime example. And if you've seen any of my videos since I started here on February 5th, my Spanish was rudimentary at the very best. I'm very hard on myself. I wish I could speak better and understand more. I have an easiest time is reading Spanish for my comprehension, but hearing what people say, because I have tinnitus and partial hearing loss, and the local inflection on top of Nicaraguan inflection, on top of Central American Spanish not being taught in North America. The people are patient when I use a Google Translator. Yes, using a translator is almost necessary for those who cannot speak well. My personal suggestion, in comparison to other foreigners from other countries that come here, many people will just type what it is they want on their phone and shove the phone in the local Nika's face and make no attempt to communicate. And I personally find that rude. I have pre-typed my questions on the translator. I've looked over at them. I've gone over and I've tried to enunciate correctly the words that are trying to come out of my mouth. And I have made an effort to communicate with the individual by looking at them, not just typing something and shoving a phone in their face. And most, over 98% of Nikas that I've tried to do that with have been very appreciative that I'm making the effort. There's only been a few, and I'm gonna give the name out. The Dragon Lady. I ran into one government employee at the Interpol office when I needed to do my background check, and she kicked me out of the office and told me, "Don't come back till I could speak Spanish." And I was very distraught because I needed that piece of paper. She was a gatekeeper, and she was dealing with a bunch of other foreigners from other countries that just shove cell phones in people's faces and do not try to speak. And I'm making the effort, but she didn't want to hear it. So I got smart. I brought my tour guide from 2022, Ron Lachado. If you're on tonight, thanks again for the first visit and continued friendship. I got smart and I brought a local Nika that speaks English, speaks Espanol, and wasn't hard on the eyes for the Dragon Lady. We went back the next day, and lo and behold, her eyes lit up when she saw Ron, and she escorted us right through, and I got my paperwork done. So that was another story within the story within the story. But the whole time, and after coming here in 2022 for the 10 days in the highlands of Nicaragua, really put the zap on my head that these people are poor. This is the poorest nation in Central America, and it's a prime example that money doesn't dictate happiness, because I saw people that have next to nothing and weren't worried about it. And I looked over, I go, I got to learn how to live like this. So if you know anything again about state employment and state pensions, my pathetic pension from the state of Florida after 13 years of faithful service and way too many years of unpaid overtime is a tiny taxable amount. It's an insulting amount, but either way, it's what I have, along with my VA disability, along with my Social Security disability. I have the potential to live a very good life here, and yet, despite all that money, I couldn't afford to still live in Florida, which is dumbfounding that you can have multiple pensions set up like that and still not afford to live in the state that everybody says is such a cheap place to live. I want to get on a couple of these. The grind, way to go to unplug from the BS. Absolutely, Chris. Most functional phrase, como si te No, the first phrase that I learned to repeat was lo siento, todavía estoy aprendiendo español. So sorry, I'm still learning Spanish. Other than the primero frase should be gracias. First thing you should learn how to say here is thank you. Not where's the bathroom. I'm always laughing at all the Spanish taught in the U.S. and like the most important thing people are concerned, how do I know where the bathroom is? There's a sign that has a dude and a chick silhouette like the rest of the world, more often than not, there's a sign that'll tell you where the bathroom is. And if you've got that look on your face and you're looking around the restaurant, they're going to get an idea that the gringo is looking for the baño. But no, gracias obviously should be the first thing you learn. I am not a small person. I have no difficulty ordering food in restaurants here. I don't need my translator app for that. You will learn some of the key foods here. So gallo pinto, the national dish, beans and rice. Muy simpático, hombre, siento como sí, gracias. The beans and rice, it's the staple food of an entire nation, and it makes a complete protein from vegetable, and no, there's no meat involved in that. So I make gallo pinto here weekly. I make a big batch up, some in the freezer, some in the fridge. I buy my tortillas on the corner about 2 blocks away from a local tienda store. The lady makes them fresh right there in front of me, and I take them home. And I get tortillas for tres Cordoba por tortilla. So that's 3 tortillas for a Cordoba, which comes out to be less than 10 cents. So you're paying less than 3 cents per tortilla made fresh. But because they are fresh, they will go bad in 3 days. You will have mold. So I'm at a high elevation where there's high humidity more often than not. The food here has, if there's any preservatives in the food, it is rare or minimal. So when you're watching them take the masa out of the bag and wet it and flap it around in their hands and spread it out and then put it on the grill, there is some oil, there is masa flour, and there is water. And that is it. There are no soybean oils, there's no carrageenan, there's no locust bean, whatever. The food is natural. Even canned foods here expire relatively quickly. I've looked at canned foods that I know weren't dusty on the shelf because the grocery stores, the supermercados here, do not do enormous inventory. They have a small amount of inventory on the shelves that they rotate through quickly. Luckily for me, I'm in the departamento, which would be the equivalent to a county in the States. I'm in the departamento that is one of the largest agricultural makers. Zipas, buenos. We are up to, I got 8 viewers. Hey, I'll take it. But I'm in one of the areas that produces most of the food. So if you were ever looking to be on a 10-mile diet, this is a great place to do it. My hot sauce that I buy is made local. The onion powder is local. Obviously, the vegetables are local. Much of the meat is local. The eggs are local. I don't have a lot of cheeses made local. So again, if you've seen Scott's videos, a lot of the cheese gets imported in from Costa Rica. There is a lot of cheese made here. Most of the cheese that we get here is referred to as squeaky cheese, similar to a string cheese. It makes a squeaky sound when you're biting into it. It's kind of squishy, but not soggy. It's firm, and it tends to be fried. So when I'm making beans and rice here, I've already pre-soaked beans the night before. I then cook the beans. I separate Scott's on a 10-mile. Yeah, luckily for all his peanut sugar rum. Yeah, we have phenomenal rum here in Nicaragua from Florida Caña. They're up in Chinandega, which is the hottest part of the country, but they have a distillery there. There are tours available, but they make a premier rum. Most people in the U.S. aren't truly familiar with it. Once they sample it, they go, oh, this is smooth. And they have like 20 varieties. They have a ridiculous number of options in it. All their rums are very smooth. Viva Leon. Yeah, we will do that visit. I'm probably looking now at March, April, depending on when our trip is out to the autonomous Norte. But so yeah, the foods here are au natural, simplistic, very few additives, if any. But means that food goes bad quickly. So you don't buy bulk food to put in the refrigerator. You buy a few days worth of food at most. If you're like, again, the tortillas, I could go buy 2-3 tortillas every day. I tend to buy like 3 tortillas, and then another day I buy 6 to last me 2 days. We need more Nika live streamers monetized. You know what? I am retired. Monetize sounds like work. I mean, I put effort into what I do already. But yeah, it's so hard to get monetized. Yeah, it's kind of a trapping that people think they're just going to make this additional funding stream by having a stream funded. And no, it's very difficult to make money off of this. If it wasn't difficult, everybody would already be doing it. Just like the guy that says, you know what, I'm going to come to Nicaragua and I'm going to do what nobody's ever thought of before. I'm going to open up a chicken wing stand on the beach and serve margaritas. Like, I'm from Florida. Everybody's already done that in Florida. The next time I see another Margaritaville, I'm going to puke. There's not a lot of wheels that haven't already been made here before. And either they've been polished and smoothed out, so they ride smooth by locals, or somebody's grinded it to the nub and it doesn't exist anymore for a reason. The odds of you creating a new widget that the poorest nation in Central America could afford to buy repetitively, enough for you to make payroll, pay local taxes, and call something a profit for yourself, that Anika already hasn't done, that doesn't already have resources for. I joke with everybody here has a primo. Everybody's got a cousin. In the States, it would be with a guy from NYC. It's, I know a guy. I got a guy. Well, here it's, I got a cousin that does this. I got a brother that does that. I got a cousin that does this. I got a cousin that does that. Roberto, yep. Thanks for sharing. Inspirational, buddy. Oh, thank you very much. But yeah, so it's very difficult to come up with a business plan here that somebody else hasn't already done, because it has a necessity to be done, or couldn't be done cheaper by people who have local family resources that have been entrenched here for generations. Possible, yes, but doubtful. So being on an SSDI, I'm not allowed to work other than a tiny amount. And because I filed for my residency under the pensionado plan, I am not allowed to work in Nicaragua. So that is good for my mental health, because it would be far too easy for me to overwork on a project. I can already do that with fun stuff like the music equipment that I'm building up to build a small studio here. I've had some people ask me about, well, is that going to be a business? I have Jack used to do live stream, but dropped out. Yeah. I saw a bunch of Jack's stuff. He was somewhat before my time, but I did catch a bunch of his videos. But yeah, if you're going to do videos to that extent, like Scott, it's work. And to create good content is even more work. So many of you know from my prior videos, I don't put out videos for the sake of putting out a video. My foremost thought has been information that is useful to others who are not here yet, and some of it that's just informative. So like the walks, where I'd go to Dia de Revolucion's celebration, or to the New Year's Eve party, or to the Festival de Maíz. Those are cultural awareness and fun. Walking through the city on Semana Santa when it's all shut down. And normally I'm dodging traffic and dodging vehicles, and I'm walking down the middle of the street and there's no cars. And more importantly, there's no motorcycles and there's no humans. Those are great videos to do, and I had fun doing those. But those are more about like the cultural awareness. But I want to bring a light, because there is so much misinformation, and a lot of that has to do with where that information comes from and who creates it. And so again, the State Department's warning list, if you look on the State Department's list of countries that are advisable to visit versus countries that are ill-advised to visit, you can pretty much turn the list upside down for the most part. Now, obviously, is it safe for you to go to Iran? No. Is it safe for you to go to North Korea? No. But Guatemala is a relatively safe country to visit within parameters. Costa Rica being more advisable to visit than Nicaragua, when Nicaragua is far safer, is a bad misnomer. I'll stick to misnomer versus using words like a lie. But yeah, a lot of the information that's available to people in North America is based off of information that somebody wants you to have available while in North America. Most of your answers will be answered upon arrival and being here. So again, I filed for a residency for a lot of reasons. I pretty much burned myself out in the States. and I wasn't happy with any of my situation there. And I did not think that moving here would solve my problems, but I knew moving here would eliminate a lot of my stressors in my life and would allow me to do another total reset so I could reevaluate what it meant to me to live here, and for the first time in my life, not have to go to a job or willfully go to a job 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I may do a live stream on my trip, but I know I will never get monetized. Yeah, again, it's you got to build the fan base up. Ideally, if you can find sponsors, and then you got to come out with that repetitive content over and over, maintain the algorithms. So yeah, it's not an exact science. It's a lot of work to get any money out of this. So I'm happy that I'm doing this pretty much as a journaling, to let people know what it's like being here. So again, guy from the U.S. that had made 2 prior visits, doesn't speak the language. Number one reason I'm here is the people. So I go out of my way to let Nicaraguans know I've visited 20 countries in my life, and the best people I've ever met on this planet are Nicaraguans. There is a cat fight over there. I've been to a lot of places. I have a lot of places where I met a lot of great people, and I can say in many of those countries, the vast majority of the people were good. But the best people I've met are this country, coming through in real time, almost no delay. Outstanding. Thank you. I was concerned. I am on a Wi-Fi connection from a Wi-Fi router that's outside in the hallway, about 15 feet away, through concrete walls, through metal racks on the windows. So wasn't sure how well this was going to connect. And 8 people, 6 thumbs up, and we're an hour, 6 minutes in. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there is a significant cat fight going on. I closed most of my windows up that can be closed to avoid construction sounds and motos in the background. Yeah, so I needed to get away from what was going on, and this was a total reset for me, and it went well. And again, the embarrassing part. Oh, Marcella joined too. Outstanding. All right, beautiful. Hola, Marcella. If you don't know, she works with Scott. She's gone through her own health trauma and is coming out in glowing colors. Wishing her nothing more than continued health improvements. And that which does not kill you can only piss you off. That's been my mantra after four cancers and 2 artificial knees and a bad attitude to go with it. Yeah, so I wasn't running from my problems, but I needed to do a reset. So I knew I didn't want to live surrounded by people that looked like me, act like me, talked like me. There's not a lot of people like me, but I didn't want to go to an enclave mindset. I'm from Florida. Florida's an enclave state for the rest of the United States. I didn't want to live that lifestyle. So San Juan del Sur was not on my menu. I'll visit it someday. Granada wasn't on my menu. I was going to be staying there for 2 weeks when I first got here. The initial plan was 1 month in Managua to get established. I'd never been in Managua. I had misconceptions about it, although I'd never been here, only what I was told, which most of that was dispelled. But I was going to be doing a month in Managua, take care of paperwork. I was going to be doing 2 weeks in Granada as a tourist, to relax, and then come up here to Matagalpa, where I had a 3-month booking for an Airbnb. Well, the month of Managua, as planned, the rental, Feliz aniversario, gracia. The rental in Granada was bogus. It was not a habitat. Nobody had ever actually lived in it. It didn't have utilities. It was a scam. I got my money back from Verbo quickly, which was nice, but I had no immediate place to stay. The end driver felt bad for me. Oh, no, it wasn't an end driver. It was a cab. I didn't have end drive yet. No, I did have end drive. I had it while I was in Managua. So the end driver had taken me from Managua to this place in Granada, realizes I have no place to stay. I said, well, help me just find a hotel. So Hotel Granada Real Nice people, good people. Huge room available for the night. It had 3 beds. It had a kitchenette. It had a full bath, no hot water. They had a jacuzzi out in the front. They had a complimentary breakfast. Really nice people. If I had to stay again, that would be one of the first places I would look at to see if it was available. The owners were great. So I managed to find another end driver to take me all the way to Matagalpa 2 weeks early. And in the meantime, that was the beginning of March last year. We're at the height of coffee season. The harvest is in. There's international buyers coming in. Hotels are full. And I found a room at a local hotel and Hotel Work Coffee. They had a vacancy. However, the vacancy was beyond tiny. It had enough room for a bed. It had enough room to put 3 pieces of luggage, and I couldn't close the bathroom door when I was in it. You almost had to stand in the shower to use the toilet. It was hot. It did not have air. The floor fan only moved around hot air, and the disinfectant they used on the floors gave me a headache. But it was a place. I almost messed up on my passport renewal. It was too old to renew. I needed to apply for all new one instead. Wow. Well, better to do it now because that means then you're good for the 10 years. And you can mark the calendar ahead of time and put an alert a year out. So you're not at the 6-month window. But yeah, I stayed there before I could get into my Airbnb. The Airbnb was great. The family that owned the place was great. I basically had like a garage conversion. So I had a bedroom. I had my own bathroom, did have a suicide shower. So I had hot water, had a kitchenette, had a little living room sitting area. And the people were great. The location was great. The price was good. I was paying $800 a month for the Airbnb. I had paid $800 a month for the month in the hotel in Managua. And I was paying $200 a week at Hotel Work Coffee. So everybody had about the same pricing, regardless of where I went and regardless of the experience. But the one thing I noticed was I was on one of the main roads. So there was a lot of noise, especially at night. I was across the street from a small bar. So, again, these are things until you get here, until you move into a place temporarily, you really don't know the ambient sounds, the ambient traffic. You don't know the local culture customs. So you do that by getting here. I didn't have immediate access to a washer and they don't have dryers. So I found the one public laundry service, which was a couple blocks down the street. And I would drop off a bag of laundry and come to pick it up 2 to 4 days later, depending on the weather, because they line dry everything. So if there was a lot of rain at the time, well, your clothes aren't dry yet. Very inexpensive to get the laundry service, which is now that I moved into this apartment last May, it's 2 blocks away. Uno momento. Semblance. Oh my God, living in Laborio, the church was so loud and I couldn't do anything while living there. Right. So I'm very keenly aware of loud churches in Central America. So that was one of the things I was kind of avoiding where I was going to be at. And yet the main cathedral in the center of Matagalpa is not a loud cathedral. The one next to Parque del Rio is not a loud cathedral. Obviously, there's a lot of people going in and out of them, and they're in the 2 centralized areas of the city, but not a lot of noise coming from those, which is nice. The parks themselves, unless there's an event, which are frequent, but the parks themselves aren't overly loud, which is nice. Janet says, I was a block north of your house and the church sounds weren't bad there. Yeah. So luckily, the churches aren't a detriment like they can be in places where you could be next to the church bells going off for every little thing. What I hear here is the horn at noon that the kids are out of school thing, which is identical to the tsunami alert I heard at noon when I was in Hawaii every day. So it's kind of funny when I hear that. It takes me back 30 years to being on the island. Isla de Hawaii. But yeah, so I got here, couldn't speak the language. The initial app I had was Babbel. Um, Now using Duolingo, I prefer Duolingo. So I have used both now, and I will say I prefer Duolingo over Babbel. Um, if you're going to try Babbel, what I did was I watched its pricing for a very long time, and Amazon was doing like a lightning deal during the Black Friday events, and I managed to get a lifelong membership for a really cheap price. I was like, okay, one-time purchase. If it works out, great. I only get residuals back. If it doesn't work out, I only paid for it once. One of my amigos that visited here, Seth, if he's on, shout out to Seth, another expat that's living down in Grenada at the moment. He came up here on 2 visits to Matagalpa. The last visit, I had him crash on the futon behind me, and had a good time here. He put me on the family link for Duolingo, and within like 2 days of it, I jumped on and paid for the super, and prefer using the super. I was warned about the Max. They gave me Max free for like a couple days, and I didn't get overrun with the ads because I was on the free version of Max. I know once it goes to regular, you still get ads, and yet the whole point of paying more money is to get less ads. But Max doesn't seem to bring that much more to the table. The super seems to be working well. I'm less inclined about the social media aspect of it. And again, I'm really tough on myself. My own worst competitor is myself. So I'm not really a competitive person against other people. I'm always competitive against myself to do things better than I once did. Expaz, I can speak Spanish, but I am rusty. That goes away though. I plan on going to school to brush up. So yeah, once I was getting settled in here, I did not want to rely on an app. I wanted a teacher. I did not want to be in a class of people. I didn't want to do online. I need that human presence. Even with a video conference, I think you miss some of the nonverbal communication. So I sought out a tutor, and I do a one-on-one tutoring. So in the process of getting my residency here in Matagalpa, I lucked out. The first attorney I spoke to was my winner. Secondary to finding a good attorney was he actually speaks some English pretty good, enough that I can carry a conversation on with him. So an English speaking attorney was not a deciding factor, but it was definitely a benefit. And my attorney then referred me to the translation services for my documents. Iran Pablo Chavaria, mi abuela obligado. Hope you're on tonight. I know he follows. Been great. So took care, and he doesn't do a lot of immigration stuff. So some of it was kind of new, but I had done a lot of research on my paperwork. So he's like, okay, this guy seems to know what he needs to do. And I needed to get translation service done. Once I got things done, I was going to bring back, he was going to notarize documents. So he refers me to English Center of Matagalpa, introduces me to Lester, who runs it. Shout out to Lester. Lester does translation. As of last year when I did it, it was $10 per page. If you look at immigration attorney services, they will charge you 20 and 30 cents per word. So had I had gone with an attorney who advertises on the internet that they speak English and they handle U.S. immigration, and they will do your residency paperwork for you, and they will do everything for you, and you don't have to go to immigration yourself. They'll go there for you, which that can't happen anymore. They charge like 20 cents a word in translation. I was looking at 4 documents needing to be translated. I was going to spend like $1,000 in translation. And instead I paid $120 translation services done in 48 hours. So again, shout out to Lester, and agreed, Expaz, in the immersion Saturday, but no to the point of being overwhelmed. Saturation, but not to the point of being overwhelmed. Yeah. So Lester, being that he is where people learn English as a second language, I said, well, can you refer me to a tutor? And he did, and referred me to a tutor. It took a little bit of time to get connected to Hazel. Hazel, if you're on, buenas. Gracias, gracias, gracias for all that you've done so far. Hazel's been great. So I've been doing 5 hours direct one-on-one with her. I go down to my classes at Matagalpa Tours. If you are going to be coming to the Highlands area and you want to look at package tours, Matagalpa Tours will do that. They sell coffee on premises. You can do coffee plantation tours. You can do cultural tours like visiting the all women's pueblo that makes the historical network. Like they do the hammocks, and they do other kinds of classic woven materials. You can do visits to where they do the ceramica negra, the traditional black ceramics that are done here. They have package tours that you can go hiking, and I mean hiking, like adventurous hiking. You can go do trips into the jungle. You can go up to Somoto Canyon in the north. They do a lot of options. They even have hostel rooms there. So there are people that will rent out minimalist utility rooms with a bed, access to a bathroom with a shower. There's a washing machine, a place to hang clothes. In the traditional sense of like a hostel, they have a hostel service. They sell coffee on premises. They do tours on premises, and they facilitate a learning space for my tutor, Hazel, and another tutor that's teaching English as a second language to his students. It's all around you all the time if you pick stuff up subliminally. Correct. Yeah. So I only have a handful of people that I run into that have any English ability. And the vast majority of people speak no English at all. So some individuals, if they know some English, will go out of their way to greet me in English because they want to practice their English, and that's completely understandable. I currently have actually Pablo and his brother. It was suggested to me that we get together so they can practice their English while I practice my Spanish. I've had Pablo over here before, sat down and did coffee, and we will probably be doing that in the near future. So they will respond to me in English. I'll respond to them in Spanish, and we'll correct each other as needed. A good way to do things. Oh man, I'm howling. I cannot top that. My friend advice about speaking Spanish, you got to throw what you know. True. So again, translator app is always with me. I've got, some simple phrases that are down pat. Like when people start speaking too quickly, and even like, okay, I caught 3 words. I know I don't know all those other words. Again, lo siento, todavía estoy aprendiendo español. Yo attendo mi clase de español 5 horas por semana. Me aprendo, poco y poco. I'm getting there. I'm getting there little by little because I couldn't say any of that a year ago. If you've heard me whine about my inability to learn quicker, the big thorn in my butt in Spanish is conjugation of verbs. So conjugation of del verbo. There are 45 different ways to say each verb. And I'm from the old school of memorization. And I was getting fed up because the first app I was using wasn't working. I hadn't been using Duolingo yet. I didn't seem, even though I come home and I study and I review and I review and I review, I wasn't memorizing. And come to find out, memorization isn't the best approach to learning a second language like it once was. And I started looking online. A lot of people will spend years of classical training, and like one year they just learn past tense, the next year they'll learn present tense, the next year they learn future tense, and by the 4th year they forgot past tense. So trying to memorize everything in a new language wasn't working well. The combination of immersion, putting myself in a place where the vast majority of individuals do not speak English, doing a one-on-one in-person tutor, and doing the Duolingo about a half hour to an hour a day right now. I want to get to the point where I'm doing an hour a day. And then when I come back from Florida, I'm upping my hours with Hazel to 6 hours a week. So hopefully that means almost, 12 to 14 hours a week of study while living in it. I'm hoping that's going to make a big deal. Yeah, los tiempos de verbos may be the hardest part. I learned Chinese does not have them at all. You know what, any of the Asian languages, I visited Thailand, I visited Burma, and I visited Korea. Um, Almost got to go to Laos under extenuating circumstances in the service. Definitely the trip to Burma was the most extenuating circumstance in my military career. Um, Shout out for any other veterans of Operation Tiger Trap of 1995. Yeah, there's just no way. I could, come samida, bali bali chop chop, odashi. I could order soju. I could order barbecue. And again, I don't use any of that anymore. That was 30 years ago. So the dozen phrases I had. Yeah, Dominica did Laos and really liked it. She did the river cruise. I would be inclined to do a trip like that because the river means I'm not walking in one of the largest land masses on the planet. They still have an insane amount of landmines from the Vietnam War, and they send out EOD units all over the country still to blow in place, which was what was happening in Gitmo in 95. Between the cactus curtain that Castro had plotted, he put in like an almost impassable wall of cactus, and the US's mines and the Russian mines that Cuba put in. Nobody knows where all the mines are. So they've been in the ground for like 50 years. And sometimes because of the heat and humidity, they just explode. So EOD units will try to go and blow in place mines to try to clear small paths. Janet's got to go for class. Check back later. Yeah, I'm an hour and a half of yapping at y'all. 7 people on at the moment. I got my 8 likes. Thank you very much. Again, if you get a chance, share the link with some people. But I do want to answer questions. So instead of me just going through the whole background, take care of Janet. If you have questions about what it's been like, I'm happy to answer them. I did all the paperwork for the residency myself. Dear Lord, what did I typed? I suppose it's kind of, if you don't use it, then a really strong foundation will keep you there. Yep, Chris, you're absolutely right. So I was already worried that when I go back to Florida for 3 weeks and I don't get to practice my Espanol with folks, I had already told Hazel I want to add the extra hour now that I'm using this app that works better than the first app. And I'm taking some homework with me to practice while I'm back in Florida. I'm going to go over the top 100 verbs, the top 100 nouns, and then go over my cheat sheet of changing the congregation on the verbs from present, past perfect, past imperfect, futuro, between the yo, tu, él, ella, usted, otros, nosotras, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, because we are not studying vosotros. We're skipping right over that. Even though vos is used here, I don't hear people using it. So maybe here in Matagalpa, vos is not used as often as other parts of the country. So if it's not needed, we're forgetting it. I had told Hazel early on, my goal in my Spanish is when people hear me speak, I don't want them thinking, oh, he learned his Spanish in a U.S. school, or he learned his Spanish from somebody from Mexico, or he learned it from an online app. I want them to say, oh, it sounds like he learned his Spanish in Matagalpa because this is where I plan to live. I want to speak like a local. Now, that, mind you, that'll be some slang added to it. Voss is 100% of the time here. Vosotros is never. Basically, only Spain uses that. Right. Yeah. I've asked the handful of people that I can have the English and Spanish conversation with if they use vosotros, and they're like, no, nobody here does that. Nowhere in Nica do they say vosotros. Yeah. So we're skipping over it. If I don't need it, I don't need it. I don't need to sound like I learned my Espanol in España. I'm not living in España. Nowhere in LATAM. Yeah, I taught Spanish in middle school, covering for a friend of mine. Yeah. So again, I don't need to learn things I'm not going to use. And then learning the local Matagalpino Nicaraguense cultura. I want to focus on what is here. I have a clear mixed and Mexican sound on top of my strong New York accent. I am nasal Midwestern that spent a long time in the South. So you're talking about the local. See. So when I got to Hawaii and it was aloha, it changed it to aloha, y'all. Now I am hola, y'all. So Midwestern hillbilly that island hopped and is now in Latin America. Eventually, nobody will know exactly what I'm saying unless they ask me about something in Wisconsin or in Chicago. Back up in Illinois when I was eating a Chicago dog or having a real pie up in the town. That's the only time that nasal Midwestern really flourishes. And think phonetics for pronunciation. Yeah. Credit goes to my Spanish college professor who gave me that advice. Yeah. I'm not impressed with the language learning in the States, because even if you get a good Spanish teacher, they're teaching you España. I'm not going to Spain. They don't even teach you Mexican Spanish. You may hear Spanglish, but you're not going to learn even proper a true teacher. Yeah. I wanted to learn local. So Hazel's background is she used to work for Calibri School, which was a language school here that closed a few years ago. And I'm a former entrepreneur. Anytime I can work with a direct employer, I'd love that. And here, knowing that the majority of people have less and the majority of people are willing to work more to get what they have. Hazel's a single mom. And when I'm paying Hazel, I know exactly where the money's going. The money is going directly to her to help support her, her daughter, her mom. That's direct influence to the economy. That is direct employment for one Nika. Scott's had the videos. We've all had discussions about what you can do to do a positive influence in this country without creating a negative. My goal one day is to build on a property and to have full-time live-on staff. And the goal with that is I want to hire 3 Nikas. So one foreigner comes in and creates 3 jobs. I want a full-time maid cook. I want a full-time driver. I don't want to drive here. Like, I don't like driving in Florida anymore. Nika driving is a different kind of crazy, but it is crazy. And I really don't need to be behind the wheel. I'll let somebody else do that and create a job in the process. And the other one would be a handyman / security, whatever. But I want to build good housing on my property for full-time staff. So I've got people living there when I'm not there. And I've got people that will take care of eventual needs. Long-term, my rheumatoid arthritis will not get better. It will only get worse. I already have difficulty using my hands for a lot of things. One of the reasons I moved here after the great people and climate is the affordability. It's in the top 3. My money will go farther. Eventually, I will probably need a live-in nurse one day. And in the meantime, I could have somebody do the cooking and cleaning that I have difficulty doing for myself. I could have somebody doing the driving that I decide I don't want to do myself. Somebody that can do the repairs that I physically can't do myself. But again, one foreigner coming in creates 3 jobs that way. I'm currently employing a tutor. I go and have breakfast at the same place almost every day. I'm supporting that restaurant. I have a handful of other restaurants I go to on a fairly regular rotation, although I am eating more meals at home now than I did the first few months. And everybody made jokes about all the meals I was going out for. It's because I have such a difficulty cooking for myself. You can only drop so many pans of food that you spent hours preparing on the floor before you get fed up with your own inability to do the things that you enjoyed doing. I was an avid cyclist for most of my life. I can't ride on 2 wheels anymore. I'd switched over to a heavy-duty giant tricycle, 2 wheels on the front, 1 in the back, with 26-inch tires, big fat tires, 3 inches wide. I can't ride that anymore. I was an avid marksman. I owned several guns. I had an ammo press. I was making my own ammo. It's not safe for me to physically handle firearms anymore. We're not talking about my mental abilities. Even though with post-traumatic stress doesn't make you an automatic risk with a firearm, there are plenty of people that do firearm therapy for their PTSD. So just because you have PTSD or depression doesn't make you an automatic risk to touch a firearm. But physically, I could not handle firearms safely with my hands any longer. And I said, I am a greater risk than its benefit to me. And I can't go to a public range and shoot my guns if I'm a risk to other people. So I sold off my firearms. Luckily, I sold most of them off. Either one, my gun safe went to Habitat for Humanity, so that's helping some single mom, with funding. I donated two of my rifle. My last big rifle was a left-handed AR-15 from Stag Arms that they don't make anymore. And I had lots of bells and whistles to go on it. And I dedicated that to a veteran charity. So that weapon went and was sold to another veteran for the purposes of assisting yet other veterans. And then I had sold my shotgun to my last fiance's current husband at twice the price of what I paid for it. I gave my 9mm compact to my former best friend that is in Florida. He was looking at a birthday present for his daughter, and he was going to teach her how to fire. And it was a gun that was a good size, particularly for a female hand. But it has next to no kick, and it could be a carry conceal, it could be a duty weapon. It was very versatile. But I sold all my firearms off in good directions to people. Correct. Culturally speaking, slang and dialect are everything. True. Yeah, the local dialect will mean much more to me than grammatically correct, because I tell all the Nikas that apologize to me for their English. I was like, listen, don't apologize for your English. I understood what you were saying, or I understood most of what you were saying in your English. So you didn't get everything grammatically correct. Guess what? In Estados Unidos, nobody is using grammar or syntax or context correctly anymore. Am I looking to buy a piece of land or lot for your house? Yes, Anna, in a few years. I know the area that I want to look in. But I am coming up on my first year of renting here. My goal is that I will at least rent for 2 more years before I purchase land to build on. And the other determinant that is the VA is dragging feet on back pay that they've owed me, and are doing some legal loopholes to delay. So short answer, there is currently there is $15,000 of money that's owed to me that the VA is dragging their feet on. That's going to take a lot longer to get than expected. And with one of those, it's an extra $400 a month for every month that goes forward. That was going to pay off everything stateside. And the other kicker, now residency for the rentista and pensionado have lost most of their benefits. So you used to have a benefit of getting X amount of dollars of household goods duty-free exempt, and that is no longer the case. I have a 10-foot storage facility back in Florida that a year and a half ago when I started it was $60 a month. Now it's $200 a month. Yeah, tripled in a year and a half. I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to have to pay full dollar amount to bring here. Much of that is for my eventual music studio that I was alluding to earlier. I have one heirloom piece of furniture. I have a dresser drawer my mom had commissioned for me when I was born, made by at the time, famous furniture maker in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. They used to do hospital equipment before they did regular furniture. I've got stereo equipment. So I bought a home theater system with big tower speakers that are sitting in storage. And then I've already picked through the clothes. I already was downsizing for years. I've been downsizing. Pieces of land are going up in Nicaragua. Yeah, I would expect them to. The price has been low for so long. Now I understand, what an advertised price can be, but what I won't be doing is walking around with my pale, obvious, recognized face, looking around places, going, "Golly gee, how much money would you like for this piece of property?" I know the area I want to look at, and I will have Nika's kind of probe around and ask questions before anybody knows who it is that wants to buy the land. And if I hear something that sounds an agreeable price, then I will go in and start actually making my face known. But I don't want to come in with the perception that the rich gringo's here to buy, so let's raise the rate astronomically. I will get an insider scoop on what the going rate in that area is. And one of the other concerns is if I'm looking to build, and it's going to be north of the city, I want to know, what is the water situation? Does it have freshwater access all year? Is there a wet creek, dry creek? Does it flood? Do I need to build? Do I need to dig a well? I also have a Nika brother asking around for me in Managua. Yeah, I would do the same thing. I would have family and friends of family ask without saying who it's for. Just like, hey, in your situation, hey, I literally have a family member. Doesn't matter who the family member is that's looking to buy in this area. But yeah, one of my big ones is water access. Do I need to dig a well? Does it have a waterhead nearby? Do I have water access year round? Does it flood? Is the area subject to a mudslide? Those kinds of things. I'm only looking for one manzana. I don't need a lot of land. And most people want to sell like 5 manzana at a time. So if you're not familiar with a manzana, here, 1.74 acres. Manzana is a variable amount. I'm looking about my last name and my phone number. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they look over. Oh, looks like a gringo. Boom, money up. U.S. phone number. Boom, money goes up. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very leery of that. And again, I'm highly recognizable here. And my joke about being the soy gringo of Huanuca, uno and primero gringo de Huanuca. I am the only foreigner I've seen in this barrio. Jason Green on here, who owns Don Barbera, has been living in Nicaragua for well over 10 years. I think they're on 15 years. They were in Leon. They moved to Matagalpa. He owns a business here. His wife is Nika. And they have a great shop. I did a video tour of his salon. So for those that didn't see the video, about a block south and a block west of Parque Del Rio, Jason's got a full-blown salon. So full-blown classic barber. Women can get haircuts as well. He has manicure, pedicure, massage, an espresso machine, game room for the kids, game room for the adults, music, a little bit of everything. Great staff. I went over there. I was going to film my adventure, and I didn't. I did to film a view, but how is the internet for running a live stream on the go? Knock on wood. I was really concerned about my Wi-Fi connection, and so far, everybody said so far so good. So I'll take it. There are times where maybe about 3 times a month I have to go out in the hallway, get up on a step ladder, disconnect and reconnect the modem, and a minute later I've got good connection if it's stalled. Very wise. Water has guided many decisions. The universal solvent, correct? Yeah. All alcohol may be the ultimate solution, but water is definitely the universal solvent. Yeah, water access, because again, I'm not looking for a finca. I'm not looking to do a big farm. Again, I'm not looking to work. I am retired. I'm trying to get away from the work ethic. My work ethic right now is poured into creating my music equipment setup and studying my Spanish, but not in that order. Learning the language is premier. The music has been on a sideline. That's why it's taken me so long to get the equipment set up here. about how much are beers. I am no longer a drinker. I will tell you that beers are very inexpensive here. I'm saying under $2 a bottle easily in most situations. If you see the pictures of the cost of beer here, and it's in Cordoba, you divide by 37. And that'll get you a dollar amount. Because of my medication for rheumatoid arthritis, they had put me on methotrexate, and it is highly ill-advised to consume alcohol when you are taking anything that is an immune suppressant. So I'm no longer on methotrexate. I'm on stuff now much stronger, the shot in the stomach, and I also take hydroxyquinine, known as Plaquenil. And all of those, you don't drink alcohol. So when I was told I was going on those medications, I said, well, I guess I'm done drinking. Now, not an alcoholic, not in denial about being an alcoholic. I just wasn't an alcoholic, but alcohol had been a core part of my life for much longer than many people. I drank at an early age. It was something that happened in the Midwest when I was a kid. That's just what life was like, late 70s, early 80s. People drank young. Wisconsin was 18 to drink. Illinois was 21. At 13, I had a fake ID that said I was 18. I'd bicycle my butt 15 miles over the state line. I'd go from southern Beloit to northern Beloit. I went the 100 yards over the state line. There's a Holiday Inn. I'd go in. I had a beard. I had dark sunburn or sideburns at the time at 13, and a fake ID. And with the deepest voice possible, I'd go into the bar, bourbon and Coke. And they'd serve it to me. And I'd drink several bourbon and Cokes, and I'd get hammered, 13 years old. And then I'd have to pedal the 15 miles over the state line, laughing because the state troopers were pulling people over for a DUI checkpoint. Nobody's pulling over a kid on a bicycle with a little flashlight attached. And by the time I got home, I was sober. That was just how life once was in the Midwest. And then when I got to Florida, the town, there was nothing for youth to do but go out in the woods and drink. Southwest Florida, there were no activities. There's more now than there once was. But back then, the only thing to do was drink underage out in the woods. That's it. And so I was bartending at 18. And I already knew my favorites before I was a bartender. And I worked in bars. When I was in the service, I was actually a bouncer in a biker bar in Spanaway, Washington, called the Bullseye Sports Bar. Which, unbeknownst to me, when I was working there, not only was a biker bar that was very dangerous, that it was also the crystal meth distribution point in the Tacoma area. And the Tacoma was like the meth capital of the state. So a lot of unsavory people as I was a bouncer there. And those are some other stories for another video. Yeah, I worked in cigar bars. I was a bartender. I was a tobacconist. I was a bar manager. I was security, armed and unarmed. I was a bouncer. I was a cooler, which is the security manager for a club. I've done every aspect of bar industry other than, and I actually did a little bit of bar back. I've never been a true waiter, and I've never been the owner. But I've done a little bit of everything else in a restaurant bar atmosphere. Wasn't a chef, didn't do any of the behind the house cooking. But before I went in the service, I did run the concessions for the Charlotte County Speedway in Charlotte County, Florida. And that is, hi, we're going to go on break between these races, and 1,500 people all want hamburgers at the same time. I wound up hiring my mom to replace me when I went into the service, and then I had a job to come back to make some cash when I was home for the holidays. Hey, beer, the cause of an answer to all man's problems, Homer Simpson. Yeah. So the medication, my last drink was February 20th of 2019. So we are coming up on 7 years that Mr. knew everything about whiskey, doesn't drink anymore. And when I say knew everything about whiskey, I made my own whiskey. So not only did I go back and study the family history of LeBrot and Graham, our last name being Graham is my stepdad's family, that their family is related to the Grahams that created Old Forester Foundry in 1821, and that is the home of Woodford Reserve. So I drank Woodford like nobody's business, and I laughed when I did the background, and I went to my stepdad and I said, "Hey, anybody in your family ever famous?" He's like, "No." I said, "Somebody make a bunch of money?" Nah. I said, "Somebody have an invention of something?" He's like, "No." He goes, I think I had like a great uncle or somebody that did something." I said, "Yo, that would be James Graham in 1821." And he's like, "Okay." And I said, "Woodford Reserve. This is where your family, that's your family's town. That is, you have a great uncle named James Graham. This is their town. They did the Old Forester Foundry. This is the original home for now where Woodford Reserve is." And then it's a da 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 da. And I said, "How is it you didn't know this?" And he goes, "Do you remember why we left Illinois?" I said, "Yeah, because your parents are assholes." He goes, "Well, that's why my parents left Kentucky." So it runs in the family. And then I left Florida for another country. So yeah, we may not be blood related, but evidently something carries over. Yeah, 7 years. Did not go through DTs or anything like that. People are like, "Oh, did you have a problem with the drinking?" So here's my problem with the drinking. My problem with the drinking was I really didn't have a choice to quit because of medical reasons. It wasn't because of an addiction. It wasn't because of social issues. I didn't get a DUI. I come close to having DUIs in the past, and knock on wood, I never got hurt. Nobody else ever got hurt. And, it all worked out. I have fallen asleep driving before, but that wasn't alcohol related. And I totaled a vehicle because I was working two jobs and I was working over 80 hours a week. And I thought I could handle, living on an Edison diet of 3-4 hours of sleep a night, and fell asleep a quarter mile from the house. Where, people, "Oh, well, all the accidents always happen close to your house." Of course, the accident happens close to your house. More often than likely, you're around your home. You're not more often than likely on the other side of the planet. So, of course, things are going to happen closer, not farther. But yeah, my problem was I felt like I didn't have a choice. And having choice removed was a problem for me. My problem is the $13 to $25 a drink. Yeah, I was the guy that would have sold you that 25-year-old bourbon because I knew the master distiller, and I could tell you what year they cut down the oak trees to make the barrels, and I knew the cooper that made the barrels, and I knew exactly when the recipe got updated because they moved those barrels to the other side of the foundry for different ventilation. I was the guy that could tell you all of that. So the tobacconist side of it and the bourbon connoisseur side of it was kind of like a sommelier without the attitude. My original goal when I came down here the first time in 2010 was I wanted to move to Nicaragua and spend at least a year doing every job in the cigar factory, in the fields, learn the soil, learn the climate, learn the culture, and do every aspect of it. There are way too many gringos in the cigar industry that have never spent any significant time out of the country, much less in the countries where the cigars they sell come from. And I wanted to be that living, breathing ambassador that was living that tobacco. I had a goal of a tobacco flower. I'll post that picture one of these days. But my goal was to get a tattoo. It's the tobacco flower. If you've ever seen tobacco blooming, it is an incredibly beautiful flower from a plant that's been demonized. But my goal was to have the tobacco flower blooming and then have the roots wrapped around my wrist. Well, now I don't smoke anymore. So it'd be an homage to a lifestyle of the past. Just like I don't have any alcohol tattoos. My tattoos, while we're at it, the first premiere, that is the Hermit card from the Zeppelin album. I was drawn to this my entire life. I was told I couldn't get a tattoo as long as I lived in this house while I get in the service. And once I got to my advanced training and we had our first 24-hour pass off base, I went down to Don's Dermographics in Indianapolis Speedway, Indiana, and I got my first tattoo. And never regretted it. Love it. The second tattoo I got was my bear. I got that while I was in Hawaii. and a rude awakening to the cost of living in Hawaii. This was done in 93 for a whopping $125, all black ink. Simple. 45 minutes, hour in the chair. This 3 years later was $350 in Honolulu, and the artist had to go on a needle break. Yeah, welcome to Honolulu. So I was going to have that standing up here, and the price was going to be over $2,000, and I was making $1,100 a month in the Army in Hawaii at that time. So no, I wasn't spending months' pay on a tattoo. Meat tags are here. The Social Security card, or the ID card. Or try that again. The ID tags, identification tags, known as dog tags. When you get them tattooed, they are referred to as meat tags. That way, they don't have to worry about losing their dog tags. If they find you in the ground, it's easier to identify you. If you've seen soldiers, there's 2 tags that you wear around the neck. One of those is to stay with the body around the neck. The other one historically was put in the mouth, and they kicked the jaw shut because of the rigor mortis. So if they jostled the body around, that stayed in the teeth and they wouldn't lose the tag. Is there skin tax there? And if so, what is the best way to avoid it? Skin tax. Not familiar with which skin tax you're referring to. Skin tax in the military was something entirely different, not appropriate for some of our age group. In fact, I was looking at tattoo shops here. There is one tattoo shop in Matagalpa that I have found, and I've asked a couple of the locals that work in the area that I've seen have tattoos, and I say, "Hey, is that a good place?" And they're like, "No." Like, okay, I'll take that answer. Most of them will go to Managua, or they have a primo, they have a cousin, they have a brother, they have a friend that lives somewhere and does them. Or Chile tax. Yes, gringo tax. Yes, I get gringo price still to this day on certain things. So first off, here in Matagalpa, a taxi. If you are, I mean, they charge foreigners more. Yes. Depending on what it is and where you are, you can be charged more. So taxis. When I first got off the plane in Managua a year ago, I was supposed to be getting a shuttle bus pickup to Hotel Mazante. Well, the shuttle bus never showed up. A guy pulls up and he looks over at me and he's talking really fast. And I said, and he looked at me and he's like, hey. And I was like, for Luca Gram? And he goes, see. Anything to get me in the cab. Well, he was just a taxi driver. And when he realized that we weren't communicating well, he pulled over into the casino, brought me into the front desk where the girl speaks English, and proceeded to tell me that he wanted $40 US for a cab ride from the airport to Hotel Mazante. Now, the hotel was charging $25 for the shuttle bus, which is still overpriced. That cab should have been, $6 to $10 max. And I'm looking over here going, no. I said, I pulled out a receipt from the hotel. Now, he's not with the hotel. He's just a cabbie. He's a cabbie that is hawking the airport because that's where they're allowed to work. And for most of us, if you do not look like a local and you do not speak fluent Spanish and you take a cab from the airport, the odds are you're going to be overcharged. That's just how things are. So he tried to charge me $45. I was like, no. I got a receipt here saying 25. And she said that to me. She goes, oh, he'll take that. So I still paid 25 to the cabbie who tried to charge me 40 plus. Here in town, been here a year, and I avoid taking a cab, although I now know the proper price for what a cab should be here. In the daytime, in Matagalpa, from one end of town to the other, you should not pay over 30 Cordoba for a trip. All taxes at the airport are required to overcharge. Yeah, pretty much. Typical airport arrival look like? Oh, I will highly advise you contact the VIP salon. It's their link is on the airport's page. $34.50 for the airport service. What's going to happen is you're going to get off your plane. Once you've disembarked, somebody's going to hold the sign up with your name. You follow them. You bypass the traditional customs immigration office. You will go through a private metal detector. They will take you to a private lounge, provide you a drink and a sandwich, Wi-Fi, air-conditioned, quiet area, and they process your tourist visa. They get your stamp. Somebody else goes downstairs to collect your checked bags. And then they stand alongside the curb and guard your luggage until you're done with your paperwork upstairs. If you have problems with your carry-on luggage with customs and the private screening, the VIP lounge people are well enough versed in English to communicate with you if your Spanish is poor and will assist you. So my first trip, I carried my MacBook. I also had a Mac Mini. I had my GoPro camera. And I had a music keyboard, synthesizer keyboard. And per guidance, a musical instrument is supposed to be able to be brought in tax exempt. However, they decided they wanted to hold it, and I was going to have to pay a tax to get it back. They also wanted to keep my camera. There is a law that says they cannot take your camera. The cameras are allowed. It took a little bit of conversation from the VIP lounge people, and I was able to keep my camera. But they saw my Mac Mini and they had no idea what it was, but it's this bright, shiny electronic thing, and it looks like it must be expensive, and they wanted to hold on to it. And he explained to them, no, he needs that for his computer. It connects to his computer, not that it's a standalone computer. But you are allowed to bring one of each of those in. I did have to go back 2 days later and pay Aduana a 15% tax based on the value of my keyboard. But to bring that keyboard with me on the plane, I had to pay $100 for oversized luggage. So I wound up paying a total of $250 to bring a $700 keyboard in. Had I known about the third-party forwarders, I could have paid somebody $3 a pound to have it mailed here and get it here in about a month. So the gringo taxing I see for the most part is on taxis. Nobody's tried to gringo me on a hotel. Now, most of those places the pricing is going to be on the up and up. I haven't been shopping in the local produce markets like I should because I knew I was getting gringoed. I walked into one particular small produce market nearby that everybody's told me is expensive. And the first time I walked in there, everybody's eyes lit up at me and they could see dollar signs. I was like, yeah, whatever price I'm told is too much. So I've looked at the prices of produce at the supermercados as a guesstimate of how much is the high end for food. So when I'm a little more comfortable with my Spanish and I can haggle for the price of carrots and cabbage and stuff, I know I won't be getting overcharged because I'm on the south end of my barrio. And to the north of me is the main business district where you'll find most of the produce being sold. What computer gear can I buy there instead of lugging it on a flight? Well, much appreciated to Scott. Yep. We have Radio Shack. I've bought computer accessories here. I bought like a small laptop stand. I bought a USB speaker. I bought a sound bar for the TV that I bought here. So the TV was purchased through the company who owns Radio Shack in Nicaragua, La Corso. They do appliances and things like that. They do home delivery. So if you want to buy a TV here and you're not going to go to Price Smart, which is the equivalent to Costco, and buy the enormous TV, let's just say you want to get, I think, what is that? It's a 40 something inch TV in the corner over there. If you're just gonna buy something simple, it's 500 Cordoba for it to be delivered to the house, which is $13 and change to have delivery. Versus, I don't have a vehicle. That TV is not going to fit in a cab. It's not going to fit on the bus. And I don't know enough Spanish or locals with their own vehicle large enough to transport a TV without breaking it. $13. Same thing. The couches, the couch right behind me and the futon combined delivered here for 500 Cordoba, $13.50 to get it downstairs. Luckily, my landlord had some guys doing work here, and I had some young backs bring it upstairs. 9 watching, 9 likes. Wow, yeah. 8 people, 9 thumbs up. So, hey, I'm loving it. 2 hours in. Didn't know if we were going to last this long. I'll keep yapping if people keep watching. Yeah, I would pay for delivery when you can. Unfortunately, our Price Marts are only in Messiah and Managua, and they do not deliver to this department, or I'd be using them more. If I was using them more, I would get their Amex card. I don't have a need for it because I don't have transportation to Managua back and forth. So I've been to Price Mart twice since I left. Don't buy here. No one here would buy here unless they can't. Yeah, most of your electronics, you can buy at great prices stateside and then pay very little to have things shipped here. So you can carry a laptop, 1 per person, and there's no problem. So if you have a family moving here, you could bring a lot of electronics with you in one visit. But on an average of $3 a pound to be put on a boat and receive in about a month, or between $5.50 to $7.50 a pound for air freight, which is supposed to be here within a week. You're not worried about paying extra taxes by aduana because they've already got those agreements with customs, and they base their weightage pricing on those facts. Everything here is old or overpriced by a lot. Yep. You can buy from the U.S. and get the same prices here, or you can buy from China and get them even cheaper than you can in the U.S. At this point, my team in Bolivia can buy 30% lower than U.S. Right. I'm looking now that we've been hearing about like the Alibaba direct shipments and things like that, the Temu shipments direct. I'll be interested to see that and see what's truly available. I'm kind of, I know some people are going to laugh if my sister's still on. She's going to laugh because she thinks I still buy too much. I try to actively find whatever it is I want here in town. If I can't find it here in town, I actively try to see if I can find it in Managua for a future visit. If it's not available in country and it can't be shipped to me here, then I'm looking at Amazon or some other online service and then paying the third-party shippers. So my music gear, I've had a stream of stuff coming in for months because not everything's readily available at any one moment. Nobody's got it exactly in stock when I need. Some stuff is no longer made, so it's kind of like collector or vintage. And then there was a disruption in shipping services in October to December, which are now getting better. And in fact, while we're discussing this, I just got notification of maritime packages that arrived. I've got one more consolidated delivery I'm going to do before I go back to Florida. And then upon my return to Matagalpa, there should be another consolidated delivery. And then I'm done for a while. I've got most of the music gear that I could use, the accessories that are deemed necessary or vital. Like I've got my equipment set up, and then realized due to the amount of equipment I have, the cables I have are no longer long enough to reach everything. So I needed to order new cables. Okay, so what about bringing in photo equipment? Are there restrictions, limits? I'm pretty sure Scott said something about it time ago. Can things be ordered? Yeah, we order from Amazon. Everybody here orders from Amazon. We just have an easier time doing it as people with North American bank accounts. Just makes purchasing simpler. Yes, Amazon shipper. That's how we all buy here. Yep. Yeah. Photo equipment. I do not know unless you're looking to get like night vision optics. That would be restricted here. Infrared. That would be restricted here. But I don't know of any standard photo equipment unless you're bringing in professional grade equipment as if you're opening up a photo studio. Then they're going to question as a tourist or as a retiree or just as Joe Schmo average citizen or resident, why you need this professional grade equipment in such abundance. They're going to question whether or not you're trying to open up a shop. Scott's ordering a bunch of D&D books from Amazon. Nothing like that sold in country. Yeah, I will challenge you to find a vintage copy from AD&D, the one you don't like, of the deities and demigods that has Call of Cthulhu, Verheed and the Grey Mouser, and Elric of Malnabo Mythos included in it. That was the first edition. It is now very rare, could be very expensive by today's standards, and I'm kind of stupid for giving it away when I did. Which bank refunds ATM fees? So personal endorsement is for the Charles Schwab investment account. You will open an investment account, and then you will have the option of having an ATM banking account with the ATM card. I have it in PDF if you need a copy. Yeah, I don't need the personal copy, but if you can find a hard copy of it, it's worth bucks. It's worth some severe bucks now. But Charles Schwab, so you get your ATM fees rebated on the last day of the month. So I use BanPro here. There's one centrally located here in Matagalpa. All the banks are on Avenida de Bancos. They're all next to each other. I use BanPro. So BanPro, I see an exchange rate when I get my US dollars out of it. You're getting US dollars for US dollars. And there's a $6 service fee that you get rebated at the end of the month. If I pull Cordoba, I get a 220 Cordoba service fee that I get rebated at the end of the month. When I look and see the exchange rate comes out to 36.6 at the bank ATM. And if I go across the street to the Coyote, the guy that's the money changer, I get 36.5. Now, the value of the money changer is you can get small bills. When you go to the ATM, most of the time I'm getting 500 cord, 200 cord notes. You don't have any control of what you're getting, and not so much a direct gringo tax, but my first several months in country, no matter how small of a bill I had, somebody told me it was too big of a bill to break. And I'd look over, I'm going, 100 cord, you're charging 150 cord for that beer. How is 100 cord too big of a bill to break? It's $3. Or I go to a restaurant and they can't break a 500 cord. I'm like, okay, 500 cord, we're like $13 here. You have items on the menu that are over 500 cord, and you tell me you can't break a 500 cord note. So when you go to the Coyote, the money changer, yeah, you're losing 10 cord on the 100, but 10 cord is less than 30 cents. And, yeah, you know, they're not making a lot of money. My guy is making 10 cord on $100 exchange. You know, that's not a lot of money. And you can get small bills. You can request smaller bills. So if you are not just a hobby photo guy, okay, long shot, how attainable is an acoustic guitar in my area? There are two music stores in Matagalpa. They are 100 yards away from each other. My personal endorsement of the two is Jose y Genesis Producciones. I've been there a couple times. They will have a small selection. They look like kind of look like a pawn shop because they do a little bit of everything. They are primarily a music store. Their Seth Hayes, the amigo that came down and visited, he went to the street in Managua that has all the music stores. So there's a couple large music stores. They are still going to be expensive. And you're still going to pay a VAT tax, a 15% VAT tax for things that get imported. So it would probably still be cheaper for you to order from Sweetwater. I have a lot of orders from Sweetwater. Go to my third-party shipper. Or if you find something on Amazon you like. I don't know of many new companies, you know, like brand new sale items that will go lower than Sweetwater. Unless you're willing to do used stuff like Reverb. If you saw my prior video about them, I got blocked from them because I'm using a VPN, but they won't tell you that, just like Etsy. And they used to be owned by Etsy. So both of those companies do not like VPNs. If they find out that you are a U.S. citizen with a U.S. bank account, shipping U.S. products to a U.S. address, but you're not standing inside the United States when you do that transaction, you will not only be blocked from that transaction, they will bar you from any transactions on their website ever again without giving you a reason. So Reverb is no longer on my friends list. Etsy, I'm sorry to the people that make quality goods trying to sell stuff there, because I can't do business with you, and maybe you shouldn't do business there either. But that did lead me to find some other private vendors to make good stuff. I will be doing a showcase of thank yous for all the music gear people. There's a gentleman that owns a company called Noisy Wood, and he does custom wood for synthesizers and such. Does the cheeks, does the stands, and I have incredible gear done by him, hand carved, sanded, enameled, just gorgeous. And yeah, it was twice the price of the person on Etsy. But he doesn't do business on Etsy, and I got great customer service from him. So again, I love doing business with private employers. I like to know exactly where the money's going. I'm not into feeding corporations anymore. Although I use Amazon all the time. I'm using Sweetwater, which is a good corporation. I have an acoustic sales engineer, so they're not just salesmen reading sheets. These are people that are prior musicians, acoustic engineers, have been entrenched in some aspect of the business for quite some time, that are highly knowledgeable about their gear. And I have direct conversations with them. I have phone calls. I have emails with them, sending photos back and forth. I have a rapport, like a concierge. But they are truly subject matter experts on the equipment, not just the sales aspect of it. So an acoustic guitar, I would say if you have one already, bring it on down. That should not be taxed. That is on the list of gear you can bring down. But understand, you're paying for oversized luggage. You should not get the 15% Aduana tax. Or if you're buying something new, ship it through a third-party carrier. If you don't mind waiting a month to get it, $3 a pound. An acoustic guitar in a case is not going to weigh much. So even if it's 10 pounds shipping weight, you're paying $30 to get it here safely with no extra taxes. And if you wanted it on airmail, say $7 a pound, you may pay $70 to get it here in a week. That'd be my recommendations. Because I got bit by the synthesizer bug. I'm ordering from a lot of companies. And I have a full rack of Korg synthesizers still sitting in storage in Florida. I built a 5-stage Moog synthesizer rack, and I have the Moog Minotaur to sit below it because it's not same size rackable. I've got 2 of the Moog keyboards here. And then I jumped over and built a Behringer System 15, which is 75% filled but when you get it. And then I bought additional modules to go into it. The intent for that one is it's going to be connected to the Soma Laboratories Flux that I did the video of, the hands-free. It's like a synthesizer had a love child with a theremin. And so it's hands-free. You put little magnets in your fingers to make all these crazy sounds. And then I bought more Soma gear. So I have a 4MS small Euro rack with a handful of the rackable components from Soma Laboratories and one from JMO that will allow me to connect the Lyra 8 synthesizer that is sitting in Managua right now. I bought the Rust edition from Soma Labs. And I'm buying a lot of that gear through Perfect Circuit, which is out in LA. I've had really good luck with Perfect Circuit. I do have one item that's still on back order for 2 months, but a couple items that were on back order were shipped within 2 weeks. I normally get stuff from them either 2-day FedEx or week ground FedEx or week USPS. But electronical equipment, Perfect Circuit's been doing really good for me. Sweetwater does great. And then I found a couple new companies to find some antiquated gear. One of my bands that I follow heavily was Ministry. I'm a huge Paul Barker fan, who was the original bassist. He had a synthesizer company that went out of business or closed a year ago. So the Maleko equipment is no longer being made, and it's very hard to find. Even used gear is hard to find. And I've been building 1 Euro rack worth of Maleko gear, and I'm trying to get that in there. Yeah, Scott, I'm hoping you're feeling a little better. Your bronchitis, pneumonia, I've been there. Knock on wood, as I'm no longer in the Northwest, where I had chronic bronchitis, but I was a chain smoker of cigarettes then. I used to get bronchitis twice a year in Florida. I don't anymore. And I knock on wood, I haven't had pneumonia. I don't remember the last time I had pneumonia. That's how long it's been. Thank God. Actually, when I first started taking the methotrexate 7 years ago, I had pneumonia because it knocked my immunity down. Yeah, so you might, if you're looking at an acoustic guitar, you may want to get one that's made here. There is a company that makes indigenous percussion in Messiah that I one day will be looking to buy a marimba, which looks like a xylophone made out of wood. And in fact, of all things, the company that makes them came here and played New Year's Eve here in Matagalpa. So if you saw the short video I did from New Year's Eve here in Matagalpa, that is the Marimba brothers. They're the ones that make the marimbas in Messiah. They've got their own videos. Do hotels have gyms? The largest hotels in Managua, and Scott will know those better than I do, will have gyms. Other than just like a room with a piece of equipment. I do not know of any large scale hotels here in Matagalpa that have a gym. Again, maybe somebody's got a treadmill, but their gym culture is big in Nicaragua. So there are lots of gyms here. Roberta, who's on, is using Sunrise Gym, which is about 3 blocks from me. And I believe she said she's paying like 55 US a month for the membership, but it has a bunch of perks included with it. It has a locker. It has a Turkish spa. They've got a juice bar, things like that. You'd be jazzed to get a Panolio made guitar. Or you find somebody that's selling one. So, there's always going to be somebody that could use the money. Even the last Airbnb stayed at had a gym in Managua, right? Yeah. So less in the hotels here in Matagalpa, more so in the capital where, the largest percentage of the country lives. Can't think of any hotel with a gym in Leon. Yeah. Hotel work coffee. You know what? They were supposed to have a gym. And again, I think it was like a very small room with a treadmill. And I have not stayed in the other hotels. My Airbnb was a private residence here. And most of the Airbnbs in Matagalpa will be a shared room in someone's home. They're not a professional industry. The hostel Buena Onda, I don't believe they have any gym equipment there. I know that they are a very popular hostel. However, everybody finds out the hard way they don't have hot water. So one of the key things I was looking for was a listing about hot water. Again, I'm from Florida, and on the coast in Managua, hot water isn't so much a requirement. For me, it is because of my rheumatoid. I can't take cold showers. I will be crippled in the fetal position, unable to move. So I have a suicide shower head, and you learn to dial them in. The less water pressure you use, the more hot water you'll have. The more water pressure you want, the less it heats the water. You find your happy mediums, you adjust accordingly. But I'm kind of a water conservationist now. I don't want to waste water. And I know this country is water solvent, pun on the term there, but they have a huge capacity for fresh water. And yet I'm still a person that values fresh water. So I try not to waste it. I don't take more than like a 5-minute hot shower. I would like to take a longer one, but and then my electric bill is minimal. My most expensive electric bill so far was $20 US. So it's not like I'm worried about spending the money. I just don't like wasting potable water. I consider it an asset. And when you're in a city that infrequently has water turned off for various reasons, you then start to appreciate your water consumption. So we had a main water break here, and we went many days without running water, and which is fine and dandy until you realize the 5-gallon jug of water that you have. Well, if you want to flush the toilet, that you can flush it 3 times. and there's a 5-gallon jug gone. Drinking water, so you start rationing. And then if everybody's out of water, that means that the bottled water companies can't produce enough water for people, even though the water head I'm using Agua de Bosque. Their water head is actually up by Selva Negra. It's north of the city. And so it is water of the forest, literally, hence their name. Their office is down by Parque del Rio in the south by southwest central of the city. But I was using the more expensive water, and then the delivery driver quit responding to my requests. So I was in class one day, and I see a guy delivering water at Matagalpa Tours, and I asked my tutor, I said, Hazel, what company is he with? And she goes, well, so he brings him over, and I got the information from the driver, because you want to establish personal contacts whenever possible. One, that is that person's job. So they may not be getting referral money for creating client lists, but every time they've got another customer to service, you're helping to secure that job for that person. So I've had really good service from Agua de Bosque for water delivery. Their price did go up with the new year. It's now 160 cord for 2 5-gallon jugs, which is still, it's 370 cord is $10. So we're still talking, like under $6 for 2 5-gallon jugs delivered to the door upstairs. I'll pay it all day long. I had one situation where I had little plastic floaties in the water, and that's what made me turn around and buy the Biofiltro clay jar. And I'm going to see if I can do this without breaking it. It's full. I'm not going to do that right now. Basically, you have a ceramic jar inside a ceramic jar. Maybe I can turn. There she is. You have a ceramic jar inside a ceramic jar. The inner ceramic jar is embedded with colloidal silver. It's made out of a particular proprietary blend of straw, clay, It is a simple, natural way to have water filtered. It's been done for thousands of years this way. If you ever see the images of how the Aztecs filtered water in Ciudad de Mexico City, which is basically a giant swamp. They made canals. They actually made floating islands to grow food inside the swamp. So water clarity was an issue. So one of the reasons you grow some of the food you do is to clean the water. They made water beds, and they did layers of different filtration of rocks, gravel, and quartz. And this was the filtration of their water. Guatemala, some of their filtration beds are still being used today, thousands of years later. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I just don't want to break it by picking it up. But that will filter 2 liters of water in 4 hours. So, purge it 2-3 times a day, and you've got several liters of water. And honestly, I can only use so much water per day, other than when I'm preparing gallo pinto, making tea, making coffee. I can only go through so much water. Scott says he's paying $810 for 9 5-gallon jugs. Yeah, I'm paying $160 for 2 of them. For $460. Yeah. But we have 2 primary companies here. One was a more expensive name, and this one was the lesser known. But I get good quality service. In fact, they will periodically send me a message, hey, we're outside. And I thought like they had the wrong information. Like, no, I didn't want water today. No, they happen to be driving through the area with the truck, and they're just checking on their regular customers. Hey, by the way, are you in need of water? Because we happen to be here. Versus like, hey, I'm thinking like, hey, we thought you wanted water. And no, it's just they check in on you periodically. There goes the fly. Yep. They check on you periodically to see if you need it. So right now I'm waiting on a water dispenser. I had an electric dispenser that died 7 months into operation. And they were supposed to be getting me the simple dispenser, but they haven't been restocked. So I went online, and I have one from Amazon coming. I paid $10 US, and it sits at an angle, and it has a spigot for the bottle. So instead of having to open a bottle, flip it upside down on top of something, had water spill out all over, like the traditional water cooler, this one you put the spigot head on it first, and then you put it in an angled display that doesn't leak, and it's $10. Well, it was 1.6 pounds, and I put it by airmail, and it got it got delivered to Miami yesterday. It was scanned in today. It should go on a plane by Friday. It should be here by Wednesday. But I'm going to pay $20 in shipping for a $10 item to have a $30 spigot versus the $120 one I had that died 7 months into operation right past the warranty. A jar within a jar, a wheel within a wheel. Yep. Yeah. So you have the inner jar is the filtration. It literally looks like a flower pot. It's kind of porous clay. And then the outside is smooth, non-porous, or else it would leak. But yeah, it's a jar within a jar, and the inner jar is the filter. So people are like, well, why if you have the biofilter, why do you still get the bottled water? Because if the water on the tap gets turned off, I've got no way to fill that. Using the biofilter is an additional layer of water filtering from the bottled water I buy, because once I had bad bottles. And if I want to know that my water doesn't have scaling, calcium buildup, blah, 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 when I go to soak beans, when I go to make rice, when I go to make my tea, my coffee, there is no impurities. There is no chance. And again, it doesn't cost power. It just takes time to filter it. So one-time investment. They're made here in Nicaragua. They ship by the local postal service, Correo Nica. So that was my first experience using the local postal service, which was unique. I wasn't happy with it initially. It's confusing, even for Nicas. But basically, it's like old school. You go to the post office for pickup. They do offer delivery, but they didn't deliver. They claimed they tried to deliver. I was here, but they did not try to deliver. Then they tried to say that the product wasn't here, but it was here. I'd had to come to the post office, which I did go to the post office. Then they said it wasn't there, but I could see it. I could see the box on the back, which I was fairly sure it was. And then the next day, after talking to the company saying, listen, the post office says they don't have it, she spoke to somebody, and then I get a phone call back. And again, my broken Spanish. Oh, no, we have your product. It's here. And it was the box I was looking at the day before. 3 business days. There was a holiday included, and there was a weekend included. So a week to get something from Granada that was supposed to be here in a day. But I got it. And now I have a better understanding of why and how you would use the local postal system. You avoid using it unless you have to. But if you do have to use it, you can try to get delivery. I think you're better off getting acknowledgement of receipt at the post office and picking it up. Unfortunately for me, the ceramic jar within the ceramic jar in a cardboard box, I had to carry more than a half mile. And again, with the arthritis, I was worried about dropping stuff, and it was hot, and I'm sweaty, and I'm tired, and I'm kind of upset that I've had to make, this is my third visit to the post office, blah, blah, blah. But again, learning experience, different culture, different way of doing things. So be it. The water filtration, that's gone better now for the delivery service. The other delivery service I do. So if you've seen my pictures on WhatsApp, postal deliveries work because the delivery guy knows where Ramon lives, and they know I'm his wife. So far, so good. So that's me with Cargo Trans. Cargo Trans is the last leg carrier for Envios Fast Track that I've been using. So Cargo Trans, I was having a horrible time with initially. Now the drivers recognize me, again, Soy Gringo of Huanuca, and they know where I live, even though the address is fairly explicit, even though we don't have exact addresses in Nicaragua. I've added the next two. So Frente al Costado Sur de Escuela Huanuca. I live across the street from the south side of Huanuca School. All right, that is the official address. That's what's on my cedula. That's still not an exact address. That could be 6 different doors. So then I add the entrada junto, farmacia de or farmacia Monte de Sion, and then I tell them that the entrance is next to the pharmacy. So I'm actually in between 2 pharmacies, my entrance. That fine tunes everything. So now the Cargo Trans guys know who I am, where I live. They will, one time they sent me the link for the app that did tracking in real time, which was nice. That only happened once. Normally it's like in the States waiting for the cable guy. I know I'm going to get a delivery sometime today, probably not before 9 a.m. and it will be before 5 p.m. So you're kind of, trapped in your home for the day. The first few times when I had the issues with them, they were trying to deliver in the mornings. Now they consistently are delivering in the afternoons, which is good because I'm racing back from class. My class is normally from 10 to 12. I've got about a half hour speed walk back to the apartment, and I'm getting back here hoping that I don't miss them or get the phone call while I'm in class. Hey, we're here to deliver. And I'm like, yeah, I'm nowhere near. Sometimes I've been lucky. My landlord's been here. They've allowed her to sign for my stuff. But initially that was a problem. Now Cargo Trans knows me and I've had a pretty good delivery system with them. But my other delivery is food. So if you've seen some of my pictures on the WhatsApp group, or a couple of them here on the YouTube channel, I order from Chef Fella's Pizza, normally on Thursdays because of Scott's live stream that he'll be doing in about 20-ish hours from now. So I don't want to go get food. I normally do not have class on Thursdays. Thursday's a day that either I'm doing stuff on the computer, working on some content for this channel, tracking my shipments for MBO's Fast Track and Cargo Trans, cleaning the apartment, going to the supermercado to get groceries, or what have you. And then I don't feel like I just ordered delivery because of your live stream. Yeah, see, yeah. I don't want to go get food when I'm going to be doing that. So I'll order from Chef Ellis, and now I order earlier than I used to. But I'll order from Chef Ellis. So the short answer in Matagalpa, if you want a classic Italiano pizza, as if you were in Europe, which would be flatbread, crispy, not brittle, and not doughy, and not chewy, crisp, thin, flatbread Italian pizza, you go to Ristorante Vita e Bella. I went there last night and I had the penny pasta, their house pasta, which had mushrooms and bacon and white sauce with the penny pasta, and it was great. And I always start out with a ensalada caprese, so I love my tomato, mozzarella, and I get my Tita Jamaica, which is now my go-to drink to make here. I'm making large fats of Tita Jamaica, and I make it stupid strong, but I don't make it Nika sweet. I make it like just sweet enough to realize it's not too tart. My Tita Jamaica pretty much comes out as a non-alcoholic wine. It's that strong in flavor, and it's full body. But it's not over tart and it's not stupid sweet. I use a good amount of natural local honey. Again, 5 Mile Diet. And I make it up here myself. I use a slow cooker I have, and I'll brew my older hibiscus flowers like 2 hours to extract them fully, and then press them against a strainer. And then initially, when they're fresh, I will cook them twice to get everything out of them. And I had some older flour here that had been sitting for a while, so I let them simmer for 2 hours and then drained them out, and it came out really good. But Chef Fella's is not Italian style. Chef Fella's is North American style. So one of the big surprises here is they do a Chicago style deep dish. Now, Chicago style isn't the main style in Chicago. It just originated there. Most people, when you talk to them about eating pizza in Chicago, are doing a traditional round pie, but most of us in the Midwest would do a square cut on a round pie. And people go, what do you mean? I said, it's a grid on a round pie, which means everybody's got a different portion of the pizza that's their favorite. Some people don't like crust. They go for the middle pieces. Some people only want X amount of crust. They go for the outer pieces. Some people don't want a bunch of cheese. They want some crust with some sauce. That's those little tiny corner pieces. So there's a different portion of your pizza that has a different appeal to different people in the Midwest, a traditional square cut round pie. And if we're talking classics, it's going to be an Italian sausage. It's going to be green peppers. It's going to be onions, black olives. That is the most classic Chicago style pie. But they do a Chicago deep dish. I've lived in Florida for most of the last 35 years, 40 years. And full disclosure, when I can afford it, I will do that for yours too, Scott. Haha. Yep. Order the delivery for the live stream. Yep. Not only is it rare to find a Chicago deep dish in Florida, it's even rarer to find a good Chicago deep dish in Florida, especially for the places that claim to be, I'm from Chicago. Then why does your pizza suck? This pizza, which is a Chicago deep dish, and you can only get 2 toppings in it, takes an hour to prepare. So you're looking, for me, which is normally a half hour to an hour of delivery, is now a 2-hour wait. So you know ahead of time, if you're going to order the Chicago deep dish, they only make one size. It takes an hour to cook it. It's incredible. And the big thing about Chef Ellis here is, for their North American style pizza, is their crust. Their crust. It's not chewy. It's not doughy. It's not hard. It's not brittle. And day-old pizza out of the fridge, you can eat it cold. You can nuke it. And again, it's not going to dry out. It's not going to get like flour. It's not like eating bark. I love Chef Ellis pizza. So the first pizza I had here from them was not the Chicago deep dish, which I discovered later. It was their Nicaraguan pizza. So they have a pizza that's a Nica. It's got a chorizo for the sausage. It's got the chitoma, which is the green peppers. It's got cebolla, which is onion. It's got jalapenos, but it has refried beans spread on it as a base. Never thought to put refried beans on a pizza. It's great. It's a great pizza. I love it. I order it very often. So I tend to order 2 days worth of food when I order from them for the delivery to be worthwhile. There is a service fee, there's a delivery fee, and it's all fine with me. I discovered in their appetizers, they have bacon wrapped asparagus. Every week I order the bacon wrapped asparagus. Yeah, it's only like 4 pieces, but it's a nice appetizer. I've tried their soup. They do a Tuscany soup that's really good. When it was colder, the first time it was cold, I ordered soup and I was like, oh, thank God they've got this Italian soup. Oh, this is great. I've had the risotto. It's a small portion, but it's good risotto. It is actually made with white wine. But they have sandwiches. So you got to understand, if you're used to subs from the United States, all subs here are going to be much smaller. And it's going to be rarer to see what you would consider to be a classic sub sandwich. We do have a Subway here, and it charges U.S. prices. I was shocked. I bought once. I thought I was ordering 1 sandwich. They sold me 2 steak sandwiches, and it came out to over $20 US for 2 steak foot-long subs from Subway, which is what you would pay in the States. So I've been to Subway once just to say that I was there. I'm not big on U.S. franchises here. I don't expect them to taste like whatever it is in the States. Often I wouldn't want them to taste like they are in the States. Yeah, the Subway is bad. The steak sandwich, my same complaint I would have had in the U.S. It doesn't have enough steak on it. It's mostly bread. There wasn't enough vegetables added to it, and it's overpriced for what you get. But Chef Ellis, they do sandwiches and they do wraps. So for me, I'm not a pollo person. I don't do chicken. None of them are as good as the U.S. Yeah. Now like getting a real grinder, a real sub from the States, from a place that specializes in it, like a New York style deli or another city's style deli. Subway in the States is no better. Yeah, I agree. Subway's horrible. Wherever you go. I had other places I would go for much better subs than Subway in the U.S., even though I had one close to the house. Yeah, sub isn't subpar. I don't like it in the US, but it was better. So Chef Ella's will do a wrap. I'm big on their Italian sub and their Philly cheesesteak. Now, of course, the Philly cheesesteak doesn't taste like a US Philly. It's on different bread, it's a different cheese, but it's not a bad Philly sandwich. But you got to understand the sandwiches are going to be a 6-inch sub. They're not, there's no foot long sub. And the wrap is the same size. They're not expensive for what you're getting, but they do have a deal. You order a sandwich and you order an appetizer, and there's a 15% discount. So I've got the small sandwich, I've got an appetizer. I order a liter of Tata Jamaica, which is stupid sweet. I have to dilute it with water. But that's like my night of sugary drink once a week. And then I order normally 2 personal pizzas. So I think those are the 8-inch, not the pequeño, not the medium, not the large. I order the 2 smallest size pizzas, and the idea is I'll eat half to 3/4 of one of those pizzas that night with the sandwich and the asparagus and feel good about myself. And then the next day, I've got the other small pizza and whatever portion of the first pizza left, and I don't have to cook that day. So Thursdays and Fridays, I don't cook. Normally, Thursdays, I'm soaking beans. So Friday, I can cook stuff so I have it ready for Saturday. And then I'll have my gallo pinto from Saturday through Wednesday, several meals of the week. Buenas noches, Amoga. Oh, hello. Yeah, sí. Buenas. It's a good night here. I have been yapping for 2 hours and 45 minutes. 9 likes, 9 people on board. I'll take it. Single digit midget. I love it. Again, anybody's got more questions on it, I'm happy to answer. But as you can see, I have no problems talking continuous for hours on end. I've been in entertainment, I've been in management, I've been in sales, marketing, and instructional most of my life. An average Cubano stomps a subway in a day. Yeah. So now in Florida, the question is a Cubano from Miami or a Cubano from Tampa? Because they are different. And of course, both of them will tell you that theirs is the better. There is a huge Italian influx in Tampa. So if you want to go historical classic, you go Miami all day long. If you want for something that's been a little more refined, you go towards the ones in Tampa. Particularly Ybor City is the old Cuban side of Tampa. That's where all the cigar factories were back in the day. It's also historically known as a very dangerous portion of Tampa, and that's a statement in and of itself. It was also known to have lots of arson fires for the insurance purposes. And back in my youth, it was also the home to an annual adult-themed Halloween party called Guavaween. It is no longer in existence. But my last Guavaween would have been 1991, and in a 12 city block area that was roped off and quarantined off. They had over 120,000 people drinking like complete bohemians in X-rated costumes and were on multiple illegal substances. And yet that night there were less than 100 arrests of 120,000 people. Had an absolute blast at those parties. But again, it was in the old Cuban side of town. If you are ever in the Tampa Bay area and want to go to a classic restaurant, we have a handful of them that are super well known. We have a Cuban restaurant that has been there forever. I've got the cookbook at the house. My sister's gone many times. They now have multiple franchises. But literally a Cuban family that got to the United States around 1920. And we're looking at, like, there's a private dessert room, much like Burns Steakhouse, Puerto Rican Cubano from any local, Empanada and Restaurant. So I look out in, we have a, wow. Colombian restaurant in Northport, Florida, that has been really good to us. The arepas are incredible. They had built out a bakery. Now they moved the bakery a couple doors over when the second family took over, and they do some incredible food. I'm lucky with those. So when I go back to my little town in Florida that I'm not happy with, I will be primarily happy with my food selection there. I have a Vietnamese pho restaurant that I go to, which is Pho Saigon of Punta Gorda. Shout out to them. Anytime I ever felt under the weather, I would go get a bowl of pho. I could eat pho daily and die a happy camper. I have a really great taqueria that is that I go for my tortas. So I've been to Taco Charros here, and the tortas are tiny little sandwiches. And the taqueria I go to in Florida, the family is from Oaxaca, and their sandwiches are enormous. They are grande. They are two-fisted sandwiches, and they have some that have like every meat on the menu on them that are like almost four-fisted sandwiches that are absolutely insane. I've got a high-end Korean barbecue down in Fort Myers that I go to. We've got a Filipino restaurant, and of all things, a flea market in Bonita Springs that we go to regularly. And on the last visit, I discovered there is a bison Navajo taco stand next to them. So bison steak, bison burger, bison stew. I'm a huge bison fan. I can't get that here. There's also a Filipino at a flea market, an outdoor flea market set up to our north in the Venice area that does really great lumpia. In my town, I've got a couple good Thai restaurants. I've got an incredible Indian restaurant. I get really good, spicy, not overpowering, spicy curry, very flavorful curry from them. I just found out from my sister that my favorite barbecue place that had been in existence for I think 30 years he was in business, sold Wally's Barbecue. I'm hoping the menu stays the same. They did incredible barbecue. I could get beef, I could get pork, I could get the green beans with bacon bits and roasted corn on the cob, and a good spicy coleslaw and garlic toast, and a huge piece of whole niblet cornbread for $22 in the US. I mean, you're hard for, even when I had a bigger appetite, I was hard pressed to eat all of that in one sitting. More often than not, you're taking some of that home. And we know in the States, $22 is like an average price for meals now. I'm sorry. The restaurant, the Columbia restaurant in Ybor City, that is the historic Cuban restaurant. It's named the Columbia Restaurant. They have a cookbook as well. A lot of history to the place. They are a foundation. In fact, the restaurant is an entire city block to include a gift shop. They have some additional smaller locations as well. But if you're going to do that and you want to do something classic, the other tidbit for those visiting Tampa, you want to hit Armenia, the street name Armenia, and you will find all of the Central and South American restaurants. There's at least 3 Peruvian and 3 Argentinian restaurants on one road within a mile of all of each other. Other than that, I'm not big on Tampa anymore like I was when I was in my youth. For work with the state, I often had to go do annual conventions for the state at the main career source up there, and we would have to stay near Busch Gardens on Bush Avenue, which is an extremely dangerous place in a city which already has a reputation. And I kid you not, 3 years in a row when I had to go up there, I saw dead bodies in the street. One was in a police parking lot. They just had a sheet over the body as cops were going in and out of their precinct. And nobody said nothing. This was literally on the corner of Busch Gardens theme park. The next year, there was one in the middle of Bush Avenue, And again, sheet over the body, stopping all traffic, and not much else was happening. And the third time, there was a body in the street in a different part of the road, a quarter mile away. But 3 years in a row, 3 dead bodies with sheets on them, and nobody thinking much of it. So if you know anything about being near theme parks, normally the neighborhoods immediately around theme parks are not desirable. It's like going down Old Strip in Vegas or going 2 blocks in any direction off of the French Quarter. You will realize you're in the wrong town quickly. Every time you guys bring up Gallo Pinto, a little tear develops in my palate, aka drool. I really miss it. That and churrasco with chimichurri. Yeah. I've had 2 locals try my Gallo Pinto, and they were a little confused because the short answer, I cooked the beans. First off, everything goes in the freezer. Twice I had bugs in the beans. Once I had bugs in the rice. So when I buy my beans and I buy my rice, they go in an airtight container. They go in the freezer first for at least a day. I will then thaw out beans, let them soak overnight. I will then cook the beans, put them to the side. I reclaim all the bean broth. I cook my rice in the bean broth. Now the rice is cooked. Cooked rice goes back in the freezer for at least one night. There is a low glycemic value for freezing rice after it's been cooked, and actually includes increases the bioflammability of the ingredients. So I've gotten the habit of freeze the rice, cook the rice, freeze the rice again before taking it out to be used. Peppers, spices, and then I've got that cooked. I'll take beans, I'll take rice, I'll take the chorizo with the peppers, and I'll throw that in with olive oil into the electric skillet. And there is my Gallo Pinto. And along with cutting up some queso and getting my fresh tortillas from around the block. And there is my Gallo Pinto, which they thought was strange that I had seasoning in my beans and rice. And I was like, no, I like flavorful. I don't like it overpowering. I've got hot sauce. I got a variety of hot sauces that are all from here. The Puro Bravo primarily. I did find a bottle of the Bali's sriracha, which is actually made in Puerto Rico, but it is labeled as a sriracha. It's identical. It's got the same bottle. It's very similar to what comes out of California. But I've had a couple of the different hot sauces, and of course, this isn't hot sauce country. Yeah, I lived right across the street from Busch Gardens in the 70s. Yeah, Tim, even then, Tampa was safer in the 70s than it was 90 to now. But yeah, I can remember the advertisements for Busch Gardens while I was in Illinois. Come to the dark continent. Da, 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 da. And I liked Tampa as a kid. I wanted to live there when I was a teenager, not knowing. Just like I wanted to go bartend in Orlando when I saw how much a bartender could make, not understanding how much it cost to live in Orlando. And now I'm very happy that I never lived in the land of the mouse. But I did live in Leesburg, also known as Sleesburg, which is to the northwest of Orlando. And it's also the meth capital of Florida. They have a big motorcycle rally there with Fikers, which are fake-ass bikers. But that's it. They're known for their meth, and they're known for one motorcycle rally a year. And that's also where Randy Rhoads, the famous first guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne, died in the plane crash. That's what that town's known for. Yeah, you live across here. Also, from what I've gathered, Nica Gallo is different from Tico Gallo. Well, both will claim that theirs is the original, and they can argue that to the end of time. But being a Nueva Nica and a Galopino, Gatalapino, I will tell you that the Nica Gallo Pinto is better than Costa Rican Gallo Pinto, because if I said otherwise, I'd be wrong. And somebody would tell me I was wrong. But yeah, it was created here in Nicaragua. Even though, if you really want to separate it, at that point in time, Costa Rica was a part of Nicaragua, so it was all one country once. Just because Costa Rica broke off to be independent doesn't mean that they created it. It would still be, by definition, then a Nicaraguan cuisine. I love my Bajo. I love my Vigorón. I love my Indio Vejo, the Quesillo. Everything that is an indigenous food here, I've loved. Now, I don't eat fish, so I'm not eating whole head smoked fish. I don't eat pollo. People freak out. What do you mean you don't eat chicken? I don't eat chicken. My sister, if she's still on here, will laugh and giggle. My entire life, people have had a triggering, traumatic event when I say I don't eat chicken. I don't like chicken because I've tried chicken and I don't like the taste. I don't like the texture. I don't like it. And this is immediately where people go into a defense mode over the most common animal protein on the planet. They go, but have you tried it this way? 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 I'm like, listen, I have tried chicken dozens, double digit, not triple, but double digit ways of preparation consistently, regardless of how you prepare it or what you add it to. I don't like the flavor.